Chapter 116 Tracking. Team Renjiro left through Konoha's gate and rushed towards their destination. They just took one break for lunch and spent the rest of their time running at full speed without using any chakra. At 7 p.m., they reached a patrol outpost. Fujin's eyes twitched on looking at the outpost. He thought, this is an outpost? It's almost a small village on its own. The outpost was big. There was a 2-story building at the center. And there were multiple small houses around it. A wooden fence surrounded the entire outpost. On reaching, they saw a huge man standing before them. He smiled and said, Renjiro. How have you been? Renjiro smiled and replied, I have been well. Seiichi. Meet my students. Akimichi. Seiichi looked at the 3 kids behind him and said, I heard that 3 talented Genins were promoted to Chunins this exam. Congratulations on such a quick promotion. The trio politely thanked him. Renjiro did the instructions. They are Suzuki Fujin, Uchiha Mieko, and Hyuga Hoka. He looked at his students and said, This is Akimichi Seiichi. He was my teammate. He is a Jounin and the head of all the patrol teams patrolling the eastern shores. The trio now looked at him with more respect. The eastern shore of the Land of Fire extended for hundreds of kilometers. Fujin wondered, how did an Akimichi become teammates with a Senju? Renjiro asked, So Seiichi, what is the latest information on the Kiri Nins? Seiichi replied, We tracked them a few times. However, they were quick to escape. My guess is that one of the squads entered here to escape from pursuit. However, the other kept pursuing inside the Land of Fire. But since that squad hasn't approached us, we can only consider them both as enemies. Renjiro nodded. He looked at his students and asked, Do you want to take a break or find and attack them today? Mieko immediately replied, We attack today, sensei. Hoka thought for a bit and agreed with her. He wasn't tired. Fujin looked at Seiichi and asked, Did we clash with those 2 groups? Seiichi nodded, We clashed with one group once and the other group 4 times. However, they managed to escape successfully every time with the help of the traps they set. Since they used masks, we couldn't identify them. Fujin asked, Masks? Are they? Seiichi interrupted, No, they didn't act like Umbu. If they did, this mission would have been an S-rank mission. Fujin nodded and asked, Were they injured or tired? Seiichi answered, Nothing serious. Slight injuries and tiredness that come with spending a few days behind enemy lines. While answering, Seiichi secretly praised Fujin. Fujin looked at Renjiro and said, Let's attack today, sensei. Best to get them before they manage to escape. Renjiro nodded. Mieko scoffed, That's what I said at the very beginning. Fujin ignored her antics. Seiichi said, All right, you focus on capturing them. I'll ensure that they don't manage to escape. Take Inuzuka Hataka with you. He will brief you on the details. Renjiro nodded. Inuzuka Hataka walked ahead. A ferocious-looking ninja dog followed him. Hataka was a Chunin in his mid-20s. The group left. After traveling for some time, they arrived outside a village. Hataka said, This is Tsumagoi village. They were last spotted around here. Renjiro nodded and looked at his students. Fujin shook his head. No one in 1 kilometer radius, sensei. Hoka and Mieko activated their dijitsus. Mieko didn't find anything. Hoka looked for a couple of minutes and said, 600 meters to the east, sensei. They immediately moved towards it. On reaching, they noticed a huge tree with a hole in it. The hole was large enough for some people to hide in. Hoka went in and grabbed a few bandages that were stained with blood. He reported, It looks like they rested here for some time. He gave the bloody bandage to Inuzuka Hataka and his dog. Mieko activated her Sharingan and began observing. After a minute she said, Found a trail. She immediately began moving along the trail. The group traveled for around 4 kilometers. But Fujin, Hoka, and even Hataka weren't able to pick up on any clues. The group arrived before a small pond. Mieko frowned, Their trail ends here. Hoka checked with his Byakugan and said, I don't see anyone. Hataka commented, We don't smell those ninjas. Fujin frowned and said, Nothing in my chakra field either. Renjiro smiled and made a hand sign. He said, You have very good skills for tracking and detecting your enemies. However, I never taught you about Fuinjutsu. Let this be a lesson. Never underestimate those seals. Even if you don't detect anyone, it doesn't mean that you can drop your guard. He slammed his hands on the ground. Earth release, rampart of flowing soil jutsu. Renjiro sent a huge amount of chakra into the ground. The entire lake became unstable. Soon a small pointed rock appeared at the center of the pond. It rose up. Underneath it, a needle mountain was forming. That pointed rock was the peak of that mountain, Renjiro said. Of course, even if you take every precaution, it doesn't mean that no enemy can track you. While the mountain was rising, Fujin suddenly sensed 6 ninjas. Hoka and Hataka noticed them too. Soon 6 ninjas jumped out of the pond to escape. Renjiro saw them. Suddenly the needles from the mountain facing them were launched. 2 of them quickly made hand signs. A water wall followed by an earth wall formed to defend them. Fujin, Mieko, and Hoka were about to attack, but Renjiro stopped them. He looked at them. They looked back. Both sides were in a standoff. Fujin observed them carefully. All 6 wore masks. They were probably all in their 20s or 30s. 2 of them had Jounin-level chakra, while the rest had Chunin-level chakra. Renjiro asked, "State your names and your purpose for entering the land of fire." Some of the Kirinins recognized Renjiro and became tense. Renjiro threatened, "Surrender and identify yourself or—" He released a very strong killing intent and continued, "Die!" Karatachi Kazuki, the leader of the 6 Kirinins, said, "Senju Renjiro, we just want a safe passage back to Kiri. Give us a way and we will leave. Otherwise, don't think you will leave unscathed." He was making a compromise. He still wanted to hunt the Kirinins from the rebel faction. But he didn't think that he would draw out someone as strong as Renjiro. Renjiro ignored his threat and said, "Kill them!" As soon as he said it, Fujin, Mieko, and Hoka immediately got into the action. Fujin launched a great breakthrough jutsu even before Renjiro had completed his command. Mieko immediately made a few hand signs and launched a fireball jutsu into the great breakthrough jutsu less than a second later. Hoka gathered chakra in his palm, planning to use vacuum palm. The Kirinins didn't expect the kids behind Renjiro to make such a quick and strong move. However, they had spent the last few days on edge. So they were on very high alert. As soon as Fujin made a move, Karatachi Kazuki made a hand sign and a water wall appear. In between them. Due to how fast he did it, Fujin had no time to supercharge the jutsu. So the water wall managed to hold the winds back until 3 more water walls formed. However, soon a raging fire spread through the winds. The Earth Affinity Kiri ninja was about to make an earth wall, when Kazuki shouted, "Disperse!" The group immediately dispersed in different directions. As soon as they moved, the ground underneath them turned into deadly spikes and spears. Kazuki saw them and recalled the dozens of Kiri ninjas who died from this tactic of Renjiro. Renjiro frowned. He didn't expect his attack to do 0 damage. He created a shadow clone and said, "They have dispersed. Take one opponent and kill. Then help others." Chapter 117, Fight begins. Renjiro flickered towards Kazuki, while his clone flickered towards the other Kiri Jounin. Fujin, Hoka, and Mieko also flickered. Hataka was left alone. He was shocked at how quickly the team dispersed. He muttered, "They are just kids and they move this quickly." Both he and his dog moved towards the last remaining enemy. The Kiri ninjas had just dispersed momentarily. They intended on regrouping immediately. However, 5 of them were immediately engaged by Konoha ninjas. That last one was engaged a few seconds later. Kazuki's face was grim. He didn't want to engage Renjiro. Fujin flickered towards the Kiri ninja who was the farthest from any other Kiri ninja. He grabbed his sword and attacked his enemy. The Kiri ninja was Matsuzaki Masa. He was an elite Chunin. He noticed Fujin approaching him. He furrowed his eyebrows due to how quickly Fujin attacked him that he grabbed his kunai to block the hit. At the same time, he was moving backwards. After clashing with Konoha ninjas for the last few days, escape became their priority. He might have underestimated Fujin under normal circumstances, but he had just witnessed Fujin blow a rank C jutsu instantly without any hand signs. Fujin flowed his chakra through his sword. Masa immediately noticed it. He immediately moved backwards with no intent to engage Fujin. Fujin was surprised that his opponent was able to sense the chakra flow that he swung his sword from a distance. A sharp flying slash of chakra went towards Musa. Musa was very surprised. He didn't expect his opponent to be able to attack with his sword from a range. He quickly dodged. Fujin followed up with 3 more slashes, but Musa dodged all 3. Each time he dodged with more precision and lesser movement. Musa smirked and said, "You are too green, brat. I have sparred against all 7 swordsmen of the mist. Your sword is ineffective against me." Though Musa sounded arrogant, in reality his mood was very grim. He was thinking, this brat is troublesome. I have to watch out for his great breakthrough jutsu in addition to his sword slashes. Fujin didn't pay much attention to his opponent's words. He made a hand sign and dozens of wind clones appeared. Musa observed the clones properly and focused on one clone. Fujin frowned, first sensing chakra flow and now looking at that clone. Looks like he is a sensor as well. Of the 12 clones Fujin made, 11 were made with just 0.5% of his chakra, while the last clone had 10% of his chakra. Musa focused on the clone with the largest chakra. 2 of the weaker clones went forward and used wind explosion jutsu on Musa. However, Musa moved behind and made a couple of hand signs. 6 water clones appeared around him. Each contained 5% of his chakra. 1 of those clones created a water wall to block the winds generated by the jutsu. Fujin muttered, "This will be annoying." He and his clones disappeared into the forest. Musa was surprised that his opponent retreated. He spread his chakra field and noticed that Fujin and his clones were surrounding him from all sides, but not making a move on him. His face became grim. He analyzed, this brat is smart. He realized that he couldn't beat me and decided to stall for time. Konoha reinforcements might be coming anytime. I need to create a breakthrough so that everyone can escape. Though his analysis was sound, he didn't guess Fujin's thoughts correctly. Fujin didn't intend to waste time. Instead, he wanted to use the circumstances to force his opponent to make a move and give an opening. After all, unlike the Chunin exams, Fujin couldn't depend on his advantage of having a higher chakra reserve. His opponent's chakra was only slightly less than his. Fujin strategized, I don't have much of an advantage in chakra and in terms of experience, I'm highly disadvantaged. I'll need him to give me an opening, otherwise it'll be tough to defeat him. Fujin's strategy depended on another important factor. That is, his teammates shouldn't be defeated. Fujin subconsciously didn't consider this aspect much. It was due to his trust in the ability of his teammates and sensei. Musa analyzed the options available to him. There are 3 ways. One is I try to kill this kid. But I have a feeling that it'll be very difficult. Second is that I could try and go away from him and team up with someone. This way we could cooperate more. And the third way will be to send water clones away to aid others while I stop this kid. Musa analyzed for a few seconds and made his decision. Immediately, he and 4 water clones ran towards Fujin. The other 2 water clones ran in the directions where there was only 1 wind clone. Musa's water clones had a lot more chakra than Fujin's wind clones. So he was confident that they would get away. Fujin smiled at seeing his enemy using this tactic. 2 of his wind clones used wind instantaneous body jutsu to appear behind the water clones that were escaping and used great breakthrough jutsu on them. The water clones were surprised. They were both dispersed. Fujin's wind clones also dispersed. Fujin smiled while Musa was grim. Unlike shadow clones, elemental clones don't return the chakra on being dispelled. This minor clash had cost Musa 10% of his chakra, while Fujin lost just 1%. Fujin's other clones flickered as well and used wind explosion jutsu on Musa and his clones, while Fujin moved away from Musa and kept his distance. In the battles happening other than Renjiro's shadow clone, only Fujin was the Konoha ninja who kept his distance. All others tried fighting at close range. Musa managed to defend against all attacks, however, he couldn't get close to Fujin. He frowned and decided to use the second tactic. However, as soon as he changed his direction, Fujin chased him and his clones once again harassed him. This forced him to stop and confront Fujin, who just retreated back and didn't confront him. The 2 exchanged attacks in this manner a few times. Musa's face became ugly. Fujin's tactic was very annoying. He cursed Fujin loudly and taunted him, but Fujin didn't reply and continued the same tactic. However, despite the high number of exchanges, Musa wasn't injured at all. He never gave any openings for Fujin to exploit. Fujin, who was at a distance waiting to sneak attack, frowned. He thought, are all Kiri ninjas so tough to kill? At the same time, others were engaging in a clash as well. The quick attack by Renjiro and his students ensured that the Kiri ninjas stayed separated. They had witnessed their teamwork in the short clash and didn't want them to get together. Hoka's opponent was another elite Chunin. His name was Ona Danjiro. Just like most Kiri ninjas, he too was an expert at water release jutsus. As soon as he saw Hoka's Byakugan, he immediately moved away from him and quickly made a few hand signs. Water release, wild water wave jutsu. A huge wave of water appeared and crashed towards Hoka. Seeing the wave, Danjiro thought, I should never get in close combat with him. I still remember how Sensei was killed by Hyuga Hizashi in the Third War. Despite being so strong, he couldn't retaliate at all after having his chakra points closed. Hoka immediately flickered out of the way and flickered once again to come close to Danjiro. Danjiro moved backwards while making more hand signs. Water bullet jutsu. Hoka could have dodged them. However, he wanted to fight head-on. So he gathered chakra in his palm and used vacuum palms to stop his water bullets. Danjiro was surprised to see such a young Hyuga use this jutsu. The vacuum palms and water bullets clashed. Some of the vacuum palms went through the water bullets and moved towards Danjiro. Danjiro immediately dodged. He created more distance from Hoka and engaged in a long-distance battle. Hoka tried getting close many times, but Danjiro managed to keep his distance and used mid-range water jutsus. Hoka could only engage him with earth jutsus and vacuum palms. Chapter 118 The Breakthrough. Mieko faced a tricky opponent as well. Her opponent was Ishimaru Hoshi, a chunin with water affinity. On flickering in front of him, Mieko immediately launched a fireball jutsu. However, Hoshi easily dodged her and used water release, wild bubble wave jutsu. He spat out a large volume of foam-like bubbles. They rushed towards Mieko, who flickered out of the way. The bubbles covered that part of the ground and made it very slippery. Mieko tried flickering behind him. However, he once again spat another wild bubble wave jutsu at her, forcing her to dodge. She tried attacking him twice more just to be countered the same way. She frowned and flickered again and used another fireball jutsu from mid-range. Hoshi once again made hand signs and used the same jutsu. On clashing, his jutsu overpowered Mieko's and doused the fire. By now, all the ground around him in a 30-meter radius was filled with bubbles. It was very slippery. Mieko noticed this as well and frowned. She analyzed, he is trying to make a battlefield more favorable for him. And his chakra is higher than mine, so he can use a lot more ninjutsu than me. I need to end this quickly. Mieko kept her distance and attacked with shurikens. Hoshi used another bubble jutsus, but this time using way less chakra and producing a very small volume of bubbles. However, they were adequate to block her shurikens. At the same time, they spread out the slippery field even more. Mieko kept attacking with shurikens, kunais, and explosion tags. At times she even used fire or earth release jutsus. However, Hoshi kept neutralizing her weapons and fired jutsus with bubbles. As for earth jutsus, he used to just slide out of the wave. Mieko kept her Sharingan active the whole time to cast a genjutsu on him. However, Hoshi never looked into her eyes. Hoshi then used hidden mist jutsu to block any attempts to cast genjutsu on him. Mieko frowned. Her Sharingan couldn't see through the mist. She kept attacking from a range but produced no good result. The stalemate continued in this manner. Inuzuka Hataka was the only one who was at a disadvantage. He hadn't learnt any nature manipulation, while his opponent, Mimasuya Doi, was quite good with his water release. He kept his distance and kept attacking Hataka with water bullets from a distance. While he hung on, both he and his dog had taken a lot of minor injuries. However, he gritted his teeth and kept fighting. He didn't want to be the one to lose when even kids less than half his age weren't being defeated. Seeing that he couldn't defeat his opponent in a short time, Mimasuya Doi used hidden mist jutsu. This was a common escape tactic among Kiri ninjas. They would cover the battlefield with mist and could decide whether to escape or assassinate their enemies. Hataka used his strong sense of smell to keep a track of his opponent and kept fighting. However, the mist kept spreading throughout the battlefield. Unlike others, Renjiro was overbearing. On flickering, he immediately attacked Kazuki with his full strength. Kazuki barely managed to hang on to his life. He used water jutsus to counter Renjiro's water jutsus and used lightning jutsus to counter his earth jutsus. His entire focus was on stalling Renjiro until one of his subordinates managed to defeat their opponent and allow them to flee. However, it was just a matter of time before he fell to Renjiro if others didn't find a breakthrough. Renjiro's clone, on the other hand, was at a disadvantage. He couldn't risk getting hit by anything. So he kept his distance and blocked any attack by his opponent. His opponent, Mimasuya Junji, kept trying to disengage and hit the chunins, but Renjiro's clone kept blocking him. He tried using hidden mist jutsu, but Renjiro dispersed it every time that I end this way. The clash entered a deadlock. Both sides knew that only one ninja would have to claim victory in order to turn the tides. However, the Kiri ninjas were under more pressure due to them being in Konoha's territory. The stalemate continued until the hidden mist jutsu used by Mimasuya Doi spread to other battles. The Kiri ninja sighed in relief on seeing it. They would finally be able to escape, however it wasn't easy. Fujin and Renjiro easily dispersed it and kept up their attack. They gave no chance to their opponents to take advantage of the mist. The breakthrough that both sides were waiting for came in the fight between Mieko and Hoshi. They kept fighting till Mieko noticed that there was another ninja casting hidden mist jutsu as well. She realized they are planning to use hidden mist jutsu to cover their escape. She gritted her teeth and made a few hand signs. She jumped into the slippery field to confront her opponent. On entering the mist, her legs slipped and she fell down. Hoshi heard it and an evil grin appeared on his face. He quickly moved towards her. Today an Uchiha genius will die at my hands. Mieko got up while maintaining her hand signs. She analyzed, he should have heard that fall. Now I only have to wait for him to come to me. Hoshi silently slid through the ground. He made almost no noise. He moved around Mieko to hit her from behind. Despite the hidden mist jutsu, he wouldn't underestimate her Sharingan. Mieko didn't sense or hear him at all. However, when Hoshi was around 5 meters B.
Look, if you've actually made it this far into the video and you're still here, come on then, hit subscribe. And honestly, if you think a friend of yours would like this, go on and share it with them. It really helps out. Right, I'm done. I'll get out of your hair now so you can get back to the good stuff. But seriously, stick around till the end. It's well worth it.
Behind her, she felt that she was about to be hit in the back. Constant spars with Fujin and Renjiro had made her very sensitive to sneak attacks. She immediately used her jutsu. Fire release, Hellfire Clap Jutsu. A ring of fire appeared instantly around Mieko. Hoshi felt the heat and became alert. He thought, what is this bitch doing? He immediately decided to retreat and attack again later. However, before his legs could move, the fire expanded in all directions. It expanded for 10 meters, catching Hoshi. The fire was very hot. Without any defenses, Hoshi was burned instantly. He yelled loudly. The fire burnt all his skin and his organs as well. He tried making a hand sign to survive but fell midway. His insides had been cooked and his skin had been burnt. The jutsu burnt all the grass and even soil in a 10-meter radius. Even the mist there was dispersed. Mieko's Sharingan saw as Hoshi was burnt alive with no way to resist. His burnt body fell on the burnt soil. Mieko took deep breaths. The jutsu used up a lot of her chakra. However, she smiled. The breakthrough that everyone was looking for was provided by her to Konoha. Chapter 119, Sweeping Through Enemy Chunins. The battle, which was in a stalemate, was disturbed thrice in a short duration. First, mist spread throughout the battlefield. A minute after it spread, a loud yell was heard throughout the battlefield. And a few seconds after that, a heat wave spread through the battlefield. Fujin and his clones were engaged in an intense battle. 17 wind clones were attacking Musa and his 8 water clones. Musa didn't provide any openings. However, Mieko's actions disturbed him twice that he heard the loud yell, but he didn't allow himself to be disturbed. However, the heat wave that followed surprised him once again. Though it wasn't an opening, Fujin's clones all attacked at the same moment. 16 wind clones suddenly flickered around Musa and his clones. 14 used wind explosion jutsu, while 2 used great breakthrough jutsu. Musa's water clones immediately defended. The last wind clone was the one having a lot more chakra. He waited for the defenses to be erected and used air bullet jutsu just when the defenses began to collapse. Fujin watched carefully at the situation. His hand was gripping his sword. The wind clone blew 6 air bullets at the same time. Musa hid behind his clones in a hurry. 5 water clones were dispelled. Fujin's remaining wind clones immediately ganged up upon them. Musa was in a tough spot. He made a hand sign. He wanted to use a big jutsu to try and dispel all of Fujin's clones who were so close to him. However, at that instant, he noticed Fujin flickering a few meters to his right. There was no water clone between him and Fujin. Fujin swung his sword from that distance. A flying slash was sent at Musa. However, Musa wasn't intimidated. Fujin had attacked in this way a dozen times but never once managed to hit him. Musa immediately moved slightly so that the flying slash will just barely miss him. While dodging, he thought, since he has decided to attack, I should kill him directly. The flying slash just barely missed him. He began making another hand sign to complete his jutsu. However, numerous cuts suddenly appeared on Musa. Musa was shocked. How? I dodged it. The cuts kept appearing until one deep cut slashed across his neck. His blood spilled out like a fountain. During his final moments, he looked at the young shinobi in front of him. There was no expression on his face. However, in his eyes, Musa could see that everything happened as he planned. Too much blood flowed out of him from the numerous cuts on his body. Musa closed his eyes as Fujin swung his sword once again. The flying slash severed Musa's head from his body. Fujin looked at his fallen enemy and thought, if I had sent wind slashes with my sword from the beginning, I'd have got more advantages. However, he would have dodged them all. However, by making him think that I can only send a normal flying chakra slash like a samurai, I lowered his guard. Of course, I didn't use Senju Taijutsu, vacuum style, or shadow clone explosion jutsu. If this guy was an elite chunin, then it's safe to say that my current level is barely jounin. Fujin smiled. Reaching the threshold of jounin rank at merely 11 years old was a huge achievement. Fujin spread his chakra field and observed. He noticed that Mieko was alone and concluded, looks like that heat wave was from the jutsu Hiruzen taught her. He kept sensing and concluded, I and Mieko have one. And the guy fighting that Inuzuka is the one releasing the mist. I should finish him. Also, Mieko seems to be moving towards Hoka. Having decided his target, Fujin flickered. Though the mist was thick, Fujin could sense both Hataka and Doi. Fujin made a few hand signs and moved stealthily under the cover of the mist. Doi was attacking Hataka. He kept moving around him and kept hitting Hataka with water bullet and water pallet jutsus. Hataka and his dog were bleeding from a lot of places. Fujin closed the distance until he was around 25 meters from Doi. He used his jutsu, vacuum bullet jutsu. The air bullet with a vacuum core moved rapidly. Doi didn't hear Fujin until he heard a sound of something moving rapidly. Unfortunately, before he could react, the vacuum bullet pierced through his heart. He fell with his eyes wide open. He never imagined that the mist he set up would be the cause of his death. And even in death, he wouldn't know who killed him. Hataka, who was struggling, was surprised when he heard a fall. He could smell that the person who fell was Doi. He quickly moved forward and saw a small hole in his chest. He noticed Fujin's silhouette appearing to his left. Fujin looked at him and saw that he was bleeding. He asked, "Are you all right?" Hataka was embarrassed at Fujin being concerned about him. He thought, I was so engrossed in the fight that I didn't even notice another smell approaching us. He replied, "Don't worry, I'm fine." Fujin nodded and said, "Apply first aid to yourself and him. I'll go aid others." Without waiting for his reply, Fujin flickered into the mist. Hataka sat down on his butt and stroked his dog. He looked at his partner and said, "Well, that was embarrassing." His dog barked in a low voice in reply. Fujin flickered towards Mieko and Hoka. Danjiro was in a tough spot. Hoka was a tough opponent by himself. However, he was sneak attacked by Mieko's fire release, for jutsu. He dodged successfully, but that didn't make his situation any easier. Now, in addition to staying away from a Hyuga, he had to avoid looking into the Sharingan of the Uchiha. Moreover, unlike Hoka, Mieko didn't mind a mid-range battle. Though her fire release was restricted by Danjiro's water release, she could still use fire release. For jutsu and her earth release effectively. It became very difficult for Danjiro when combined with Hoka's earth release and vacuum palm. However, he still held on. Unfortunately, his situation would worsen even further. Fujin was watching this battle from behind a tree. On seeing an opening, Fujin made a few hand signs. Vacuum bullet jutsu. Unlike against Doi, Fujin didn't have any mist cover. In addition, Danjiro was fighting two enemies and was on a very high alert. He sensed Fujin's jutsu and immediately took evasive maneuvers. However, vacuum bullet was very fast. Though Danjiro dodged, it still grazed past the side of his abdomen, leaving a 1-inch deep scar. It immediately began bleeding. Hoka immediately took advantage of this. He targeted Danjiro's heart with a vacuum palm attack. Mieko was a split second slower, but she attacked with shurikens too. Danjiro already had his back against the wall while fighting just Mieko and Hoka. Fujin's sneak attack was the last straw that broke the camel's back. The injury caused by vacuum bullet, though not life-threatening by itself, distracted him. He had to divide his attention to a third hidden enemy. Hoka and Mieko used this exact moment to attack. Hoka's attack hit first. Though Danjiro tried moving, it was very late. The attack hit on point and made Danjiro vomit blood. Immediately, Mieko's shurikens hit his throat. He fell down, slain in battle. With the enemy finally down, Hoka and Mieko looked where Fujin was. Hoka frowned and said, "I could have killed him myself. You two didn't need to help me." Mieko smirked and replied, "Be faster next time." Fujin replied, "Do you want to keep fighting this guy, or do you want to fight that Jounin who Sensei's clone is fighting against?" That immediately attracted their attention. Hoka replied, "Let's go and fight him." Mieko was excited too. But she suggested, "We should first kill that enemy who was fighting Inuzuka Hataka. Then only the two Jounins would be left." Fujin replied, "Already took care of him before helping you guys." Mieko got mad. She asked angrily, "That means you fought 3 of them?" Fujin chuckled and replied, "Do you want to argue about it or fight that Jounin?" Mieko snorted and answered, "Let's go fight him." Chapter 120, Clash of Rank B Jutsus. The trio immediately began moving. Fujin asked, "Are you guys injured?" Both shook their heads. Neither of them had taken any injury. Hoka smirked and replied, "My opponent never dared to get close to me." Mieko answered, "Mine maintained distance and fought defensively as well. He was just stalling for time." Fujin looked at them and said, "That's good. But your chakra level seems very low." Both sighed and nodded. Mieko's chakra had dropped to just 20%. Hoka had about 45% chakra left. By comparison, Fujin had 60% chakra remaining. If Renjiro's clone made his enemy waste chakra, then Fujin's chakra level could be higher than his. Fujin said, "You guys don't use chakra much. Hoka, you fight at close distance. Mieko, you provide shuriken support. And save your chakra if we decide to use a combination jutsu. I'll provide ninjutsu support. Sensei's clone can provide backup for us." Hoka immediately agreed, "All right." He got to fight with taijutsu, which was all that mattered to him. Mieko also reluctantly agreed. She didn't have much chakra left to perform ninjutsu. And in terms of taijutsu, both Hoka and Fujin were superior to her. The trio soon reached the place where Renjiro's shadow clone and Mimasuya Junji were fighting. They hid in the woods and observed the situation. The entire battlefield was a mess. There were hundreds of earth spears spread throughout the battlefield. The rock spikes and thorns seemed to be countless. Multiple rock shields and earth walls were also on the battlefield. Renjiro's clone and Mimasuya Junji were standing around 100 meters from each other. Junji had one earth wall in front of him and a couple of rock shields to his right and left. Junji was frowning. He analyzed, "In the last 15 minutes I have tried everything I could do to dispel the clone, but he managed to defend every time. I tried making water and earth clones to help others, but he intercepted them all. Every single clone of mine was caught off guard and dispelled. And his clone doesn't seem to be running short on chakra. Do I have to wait until someone comes to help me?" He looked at Renjiro's clone and sighed, "This is so embarrassing. I hope my lil bro isn't the one who comes to my aid." Anyways, 3 of the enemies were kids. They should be dealt with soon. Renjiro's clone kept a watch thinking, he hasn't made a move for over a minute. Has he given up on creating a breakthrough and is waiting for others? Renjiro's clone analyzed and shrugged, "Whatever. This deadlock is in my favor. Once my main body wins, we will sweep through the battlefield." The trio of Fujin, Mieko, and Hoka watched stealthily. Mieko frowned, "Why aren't they fighting?" Hoka said, "They seem to be in a standoff. I guess both are trying to save chakra." Fujin also frowned, "Sneak attacking will be tougher if he isn't fighting." Hoka asked, "How will we sneak attack?" Fujin replied, "There is no good way. Let me try." Fujin made a few hand signs and created a vacuum bullet core in his mouth. Hoka and Mieko flickered and moved away from Fujin. Fujin looked at Junji, but there was no movement from him. Not having any other choice, he used his jutsu. Vacuum bullet jutsu. When Fujin fired his vacuum bullet jutsu, despite not sensing anything, Junji became very alert. He instantly moved behind a couple of steps. Unlike his brother and Danjiro, Junji was an elite. He had fought throughout the Third Great Ninja War and was promoted to Jounin due to his achievements. Despite not seeing Fujin's attack, he still dodged it. The vacuum bullet hit the rock shield on his right, penetrated through it, passed a foot away from the front of Junji's chest and then penetrated through another rock shield. Fujin flickered to a different spot while frowning. I need to learn how to make multiple vacuum cores. He'd have been dead if I could have created 4 to 5 vacuum bullets. The attack caught the attention of both Junji and Renjiro. They both looked at where the attack came from. Renjiro smiled. On the other hand, Junji's face was grim. The penetrative power of the attack was too high. He observed where the attack came from, but no one was there. Mieko looked at the opponent and said, "Looks like a sneak attack won't work." Hoka nodded and replied, "We will have to attack from the front." Junji thought, such a strong attack. Did Konoha's reinforcements arrive so quickly? I need to win quickly or others will be defeated if they have to fight multiple enemies. Junji made a few hand signs. Renjiro's clone smiled and made hand signs as well and slammed his hands on the ground. Water release, exploding water colliding wave jutsu earth release, earth dragon blast jutsu. Junji used exploding water colliding wave jutsu on the forest to his right. A huge water wave appeared and crushed down towards the forest at the same time. The ground began shaking. A large bronze dragon head appeared out of the ground and roared. Bihin! The head was its long stone body. It dived down underground once again and moved towards Junji. Mieko and Hoka, who were together, watched with grim faces as a huge water wave approached them. They both readied themselves to flicker backwards. Fujin watched as the huge water wave approached him. Knowing that Mieko and Hoka won't be able to defend, he made a few hand signs as well. Wind release, infinite breakthrough jutsu. He blew out intense winds that clashed with the huge water wave. The water wave was stopped. Water began dispersing through the strong winds and rained down harmlessly. Some water still passed through the winds, but it wasn't much and passed through the forest while the trio were on the trees. The clash happened on a wild scale. Both Renjiro and Kazuki noticed it. Renjiro observed and thought, "Is Fujin teaming up with my clone?" Though Renjiro could use wind jutsus as well, he rarely used them in combat. Against a water jutsu, he would always use earth jutsus. Kazuki observed with a grim face. Did a strong wind affinity ninja from Konoha arrive to reinforce? Or is it that brat who used the great breakthrough jutsu? What the hell are Junji and others doing? How long do they need to defeat one clone, 3 kids and 1 Inuzuka? Junji watched with a grim face. My jutsu was countered so easily. Sensing the earth dragon approaching him, Junji immediately moved away. However, Renjiro's clone controlled the earth dragon to follow Junji. Mieko and Hoka observed the situation with their Kekkei Genkais. Hoka sighed and said, "How will I fight in close range if they use such huge jutsus?" Fujin concentrated chakra in his eyes to carefully observe the earth dragon chasing Junji. He analyzed, if he defends Renjiro's attack I might get another shot. Fujin quickly made a few hand signs and prepared another vacuum bullet core. Though Junji was moving rapidly, the earth dragon was faster. Understanding that he can't dodge, he created a hand sign and slammed his hands on the ground. Earth release, rocky ground barrier jutsu. The ground under Junji immediately began hardening. In addition, a rock dome appeared around him and surrounded him. The earth dragon clashed with the hard rocky ground and was stopped. Having no way to proceed ahead, it exploded. Junji desperately poured his chakra into the ground to strengthen his defenses. Fujin, who was observing carefully, suddenly noticed an opportunity. He immediately fired his vacuum bullet at Junji. Junji was in a very tough spot. Chapter 121, Desperate Defense. The earth dragon's explosion sent cracks through the hardened rock. But the ground also absorbed the impact of the blast. So the rock dome stayed intact. However, at the next moment, a vacuum bullet hit the rock dome and penetrated it. Junji, who was pouring his chakra into the rock dome, immediately noticed it and moved to his right. He was always on alert for another sneak attack. However, he didn't have much time to move. Though he dodged, the bullet created a deep cut in his upper left arm as it passed. Junji winced, but he had no time to worry about the pain. While dodging the vacuum bullet, he couldn't supply chakra to the rock dome anymore. Renjiro's clone noticed it and slammed his hands on the ground again. Earth release, earth flow divide jutsu. The ground under the rock dome immediately began splitting apart. Realizing the danger, Junji created an opening in his rock dome and moved out. The ground under the rock dome kept splitting apart. It split for 10 meters when the entire rock dome collapsed inside it. As soon as Junji moved out, a vacuum bullet and an earth spear attacked him. But he managed to dodge them both. Fujin concluded, looks like killing him with a long-range attack is not possible. Fujin and Renjiro's clone weren't the only ones who targeted Junji as soon as he left the dome. Hoka and Mieko also got into action. They flickered in front of him. Mieko immediately threw a few shurikens, while Hoka ran forward to block his chakra points. Junji immediately dodged the shurikens. Hoka used that opportunity to close the distance between them and attack him. Junji blocked Hoka's attacks while analyzing, how did these brats get here? Did they defeat our Chunins? Or did they get reinforcements who freed them up? I am getting worried about Doi. I need to break free quickly. Junji had his back against the wall. Realizing that he would not be able to break free by staying on defense, he decided to go on the attack. He started with Hoka, who was fighting him. Unfortunately for him, the enemy's attack was too intense. He tried to gain an advantage against Hoka, but Hoka's taijutsu was as good as his. Additionally, he had to keep an eye out for Mieko's shurikens, Fujin's vacuum bullets and Renjiro's long-range jutsus. With Hoka fighting in close range, vacuum bullet became too dangerous to use. While it did apply pressure on Junji, Fujin concluded that it won't create much of an effect. So Fujin flickered and joined Mieko and Hoka as well. Junji noticed Fujin and thought, so it was him. Looks like there are no reinforcements. But does this mean that all three of them won their fights? His face grew grim as he concluded, we underestimated them. This mission is now a total disaster. Fujin stayed behind Hoka and made a few hand signs. Junji kept a close eye on Fujin. Renjiro's clone observed his students and analyzed, all three of them are here. So all four of the enemy Chunins should be dead. He smiled, I never thought that I would be the slowest to deal with my opponents. My main body seems to still be in a deadlock. Renjiro's clone stayed behind and just observed his students. Just his presence alone created a lot of pressure on Junji. He wanted his students to get the experience of fighting against an experienced jounin. After all, missions tend to go bad frequently. The next time, he wouldn't be around to keep an eye on them. Hoka kept engaging Junji in hand-to-hand combat. Mieko used her shurikens to make openings for Hoka, while Fujin used his air bullets to not allow Junji any retreat. Junji's expression was grim. These brats are strong. 3 of them together can take me on. And they aren't allowing me any opportunity to use any ninjutsu. And that clone is still staring at me. But with these brats here, he won't use any large-scale ninjutsu. But I need to save some chakra to deal with the clone and to escape. And I still have to check on Doi. Though a lot of thoughts were running through Junji's mind, they didn't affect his combat. The fight remained in a deadlock for the next 5 minutes. During these 5 minutes, Junji gave multiple opportunities for Fujin and Mieko to jump into close combat. However, all those openings were traps. Neither Fujin nor Mieko jumped in and stayed behind Hoka and provided mid-range support. Junji's situation kept getting worse. Though he wasn't seriously injured, he had a lot of close calls. There were a lot of small cuts on his body. It was only a matter of time before one attack hit him fatally. Even more pressing was that his chakra was decreasing. And Renjiro's clone was observing him carefully. Understanding that maintaining the situation would be unfavorable for him, he decided to go on the attack. As Junji decided, a shuriken came flying at him. He tilted his head and avoided it. Right after, Hoka attacked with his gentle fist style. Junji began moving backwards to avoid Hoka. However, 2 air bullets were shot behind him and one was directed at him. Not having any opportunity to use any ninjutsu to defend, Junji had to move forward towards Hoka to avoid the bullets. Hoka aimed his palm at Junji's chest. Junji used his left hand to deflect Hoka's attack by hitting him on his wrist. Junji followed it up with a strong kick with his right leg targeting Hoka's left side. Hoka blocked the kick with his left forearm. However, the force of that kick sent Hoka to his right for a few meters. Junji immediately ignored Hoka and moved towards Fujin and Mieko thinking, these kids didn't attack even when I provided openings. So their taijutsu must be weak. Seeing Junji run towards him, Fujin's eyes widened. He shouted, crap, and immediately ran to his left, leaving Mieko alone to face him. Seeing one of the 2 kids run away, Junji smirked. He thought, as I thought. They were both hiding behind that Hyuga brat. so they specialize in mid and long-range combat and are bad at taijutsu. I'll kill this girl before that Hyuga brat comes to her help and then kill the one who ran away as well. Mieko scoffed internally at Fujin's antics. She threw the shurikens in her hands at Junji and grabbed a kunai. Junji dodged the shurikens and grabbed his own kunai and attacked Mieko. Mieko blocked his kunai with her own and kicked his abdomen almost at the same time. Junji was shocked. She isn't bad at taijutsu. At that moment, Hoka began running towards him from his rear while Mieko attacked from the front. Junji's face grew grim as he grabbed another kunai. He blocked Mieko's attacks and was about to look at Hoka when he suddenly felt something on his right. He looked to see that the kid who ran away was attacking him with a sword. Fujin attacked him as if he wanted to cut his body vertically in two. Realizing the danger, he increased the force on the kunai that was blocking Mieko and sent her flying backwards. Almost immediately, he raised the kunai in his other hand to block the sword and sent a kick at Hoka, who was just behind him. The sword clashed with the kunai and the kick met two outstretched fingers. Junji grunted as he felt Hoka disabling a chakra point in his feet. However, soon his eyes widened as he saw the sword cutting through his kunai and coming down at his head. He pushed his feet on Hoka's fingers and used them to jump away from him so that he could dodge the sword. His body began moving towards Fujin's right. The sword, which was aimed at the center of Junji's head, barely missed it. However, it hit him on the shoulder and severed his right arm. Fujin looked at his opponent in surprise. He used Hoka's attack to propel himself away from my sword swing. It's incredible that he is still alive. Hoka and Mieko was surprised as well that Fujin didn't manage to kill him. However, all three instantly attacked him once again. Hoka moved around Fujin's sword to attack Junji. Fujin too moved towards him and swung his sword again at Junji. Junji, who had landed just 2 feet away from Fujin, was in shock. His right arm was severed and his right foot hurt. He looked at Fujin's sword fearfully and moved backwards while grunting in pain. However, Mieko was right behind him and stabbed a kunai in his back. Blood came out of Junji's mouth as he stopped himself and swung his left fist behind himself to hit Mieko. However, both Hoka and Fujin had reached him. Fujin stabbed his sword into Junji's heart while Hoka jabbed his 2 fingers into Junji's throat. Junji looked at Hoka and Fujin in disbelief. When he entered the land of fire, he never thought that he'd be killed by ninjas 1/3 his age. Mimasuya Junji, a veteran jounin of the village hidden in the mist, fell in battle. Chapter 122, The Hiding Spot. Seeing Junji breathe his last breath, Fujin withdrew his sword and said, "He was tough." Hoka and Mieko also withdrew their attacks and nodded. Junji's body fell to the ground. Hoka said, "Yes. For so long, despite getting attacked so much, he never allowed me to hit any of his chakra points." Mieko nodded. She was about to say something when her eyes fell on Fujin. She instantly became annoyed and asked, "Why do you keep running away and sneak attacking?" Fujin shrugged and replied, "It's fun." Hoka and Mieko's faces immediately became dark. Renjiro's clone flickered in. He looked at his 3 students proudly and praised them. "Great work. Though he was a bit exhausted after fighting me, you 3 managed to kill a full-fledged jounin." All 3 looked at him. Hoka asked, "Should we reinforce you, sensei?" Before the clone could answer, they heard from behind, "No need." Immediately the 3 turned around to see Renjiro. Renjiro finally managed to kill his opponent. He sealed his body and was coming to help his clone when the trio killed Junji. Renjiro's clone dispelled himself. Renjiro received all his memories. He looked at his students and said, "Good work. Did you store their bodies?" His students all shook their heads. Renjiro said, "Store their bodies and assemble back here within 2 minutes. Fujin, bring Hataka as well. Also, don't steal their belongings. For missions that particularly state to kill some ninjas, you shouldn't steal their belongings as they may have something that the village needs. Also, their belongings could have traps." The trio nodded and flickered. They went to their own battlefields and sealed the dead bodies in the scrolls. Fujin flickered towards Hataka and looked at him. Both he and his dog were wrapped in multiple bandages. Hataka looked at Fujin and asked, "Is it over?" Fujin nodded. "All enemies are dead." Hataka was surprised. He thought, "I just asked for formality." They managed to kill a team of 6 ninjas who we couldn't pin down for days in just 30 minutes. While Hataka was lost in his thoughts, Fujin sealed Doi's body in a scroll. He asked, "Can you move?" Hataka got up and replied, "Yes. None of my injuries was serious." Fujin nodded and said, "All right. Sensei has asked us to assemble. Follow me. Within a couple of minutes, everyone was assembled where Renjiro was within a couple of minutes. Renjiro had sealed Junji's body. Renjiro looked at everyone and said, "Report your status." Mieko replied, "No injury." Chakra around 15%. Hoka said, "No injury." Chakra around 25%. Fujin said, "No injury." Chakra around 40%. Hataka wasn't aware of the protocol in Team Renjiro. However, on hearing the three Chunins, he understood and said, "Minor injuries." Chakra around 35%. Renjiro nodded and said, "Get ready. We will be attacking." The second team from Kiri as well. The trio were surprised. Fujin asked, "Sensei, wouldn't it be better to rest and recover our chakra first?" Both Mieko and Hoka agreed with Fujin but didn't say anything. Renjiro answered, "Normally yes. But our enemies would run away. And we are in the land of fire, so our reinforcements will be coming soon. Unfortunately, we can't wait for them." Without explaining the exact details, Renjiro flickered. His students immediately followed him. Hataka was dumbfounded once again at how suddenly they disappeared. He immediately followed their scents. Renjiro arrived at the place where the pond that the Kiri ninjas were hiding in was. Fujin, Mieko, and Hoka reached there soon after. Hataka was the last one to reach. They were standing on the opposite end of the pond. Mieko asked, "Why are we back here, Sensei?" Renjiro smiled and asked, "When multiple parties are hunting you, what do you think is the best place to hide?" The four fell into thought. Hataka had a few guesses, but he didn't answer as he assumed that the question was meant for Renjiro's students. After a minute, Mieko answered, "At a place where no one will expect you to." Fujin and Hoka gave her a deadpan expressions. Hoka taunted, "Good way to state the obvious." Renjiro chuckled and said, "Well, she isn't wrong. In this scenario where they were hunted by one stronger squad which was, in turn, being hunted by multiple other squads, the best place to hide is near the first squad that was hunting them." Hearing that, the eyes of all three students widened. They immediately activated their sensory skills. However, they didn't sense anyone nearby. Renjiro continued, "It is ingenious. The ones that are hunting them would never imagine them to be so close. And since this is their hiding spot, it would mean that they are confident about hiding here from others. So they would be hidden from everyone, even in the scenario where the hiding spot of the ones who are hunting them gets exposed. The other party would attack them and not think that there is another squad hiding here." Fujin asked, "So how did you sense them, Sensei?" Renjiro chuckled and said, "I am very sensitive to earth and water nature. When I used the rampart of flowing soil jutsu, I sensed another underground cave that would be perfect for hiding. And since the patrol teams didn't manage to find them again, it became easy to guess who was hiding there." Renjiro began making hand signs, but Fujin said, "Wait a bit, Sensei. I sense a few chakra signatures to our left." Hoka activated his Byakugan. Renjiro stopped and asked, "How many?" Fujin answered, "For Chunin leave. Another 3 are coming here as well. All 7 are at Chunin level." Hoka added, "All are from our patrol teams." Renjiro waited. Soon 7 Chunins reached them. On reaching, one of them said, "We heard a lot of noise coming from this area. So we came to reinforce you." Renjiro nodded and answered, "One of the Kiri squads has been dealt with. We will now deal with the other. 3 of you wait here with us. The remaining 4 go and hide. Hataka, go with them." They nodded. The first patrol team of 4 dispersed in different directions and hid themselves. So did Hataka. The remaining 3 waited with Renjiro's team, wondering what he was up to. Renjiro made a few hand signs and slammed his hands on the ground and said softly, "Earth release, 1,000 needles jutsu." A half-hour ago, Sakai Cho and her squad suddenly felt tremors inside the underground cave they were hiding in. Unlike Kazuki's squad, this squad was relatively younger. Only Cho was in her 30s. The remaining 3 members were in their late teens. Cho looked at her squad members and said, "Looks like Kazuki and others have been discovered by the Konoha shinobis. Don't try to sense them." Her squad nodded. Mino Masuyo, who was a special jounin, asked, "Cho-sama, wouldn't it be better if we help those Konoha shinobi? That way we can eliminate that squad from the Mizukage faction." Terumi Hanzo, a chunin in this 4-man squad, added, "It may even help us create a good relationship with Konoha." With those guys dead and Konoha being friendly, we will be able to return without any obstruction. However, Cho shook her head. She said, we don't know if the Konoha team is strong enough to kill them. If they aren't and Kazuki and others end up escaping, then we will be in a tough spot. That's not even considering that the Konoha shinobis might consider us enemies too, and we may end up helping Kazuki escape. We will be in a much tougher spot. Masuyo asked softly, but your niece recently fought in the Konoha's Chunin exams. I heard she reached finals as well. Can't we say that to at least enter into talks with Konoha? Cho answered, I had thought about this too. But ultimately, Konoha didn't agree to help us. Even if I say that I am afraid Konoha will ask us to surrender and take us as prisoners. They might let us go later due to what you said, but things won't be under our control. The expressions of everyone grew grim upon hearing Cho. After some time, their last member who was a Chunin, Kankyusha Shunji, said, what if we just take this opportunity to run away? Cho replied, if they were able to find Kazuki's squad who were hiding so well, we will be exposed as soon as we leave this hideout. Don't worry so much. I don't think they will find our spot. So we will try to leave silently after a few days. Having no choice, they just waited in the hideout. After the first tremor, nothing else was felt in the hideout, so they assumed that the fighting spot moved. Chapter 124, Overkill. Hoka and Mieko looked into each other's eyes. Though Fujin severed her legs, Cho was still alive. Their competitive spirits rose and both wanted the killing hit. They immediately moved towards Cho. Mieko attacked with shurikens and kunais with explosion tags while Hoka attacked with vacuum palm. Fujin noticed both his teammates and attacked too. He swung his sword vertically, sending a flying slash aiming at splitting her in two vertically. Renjiro, who was looking at his students with pride, was suddenly dumbfounded. He thought in his mind, she has already lost her legs. We can capture her and get information from her. Why do you want to kill her so badly? The 8 other Chunins who were looking were also dumbfounded at how aggressive the 3 kids were. Cho also watched with wide eyes. She may have lost her team and her legs, but she didn't want to die. She made a few hand signs quickly. She encased herself within the water prison jutsu. Hoka's attack reached first. It pierced into the water prison. But Cho moved backwards within the water prison and the attack passed harmlessly through the water prison. Mieko's attacks hit next. The shurikens were blocked by the water, but the explosion created some disturbances. However, the water prison jutsu still held. Fujin's slash arrived last. It easily cut the water prison in two. However, Cho moved to one side of the water prison to avoid getting hit. The winds accompanying the slash were also dulled by the water. However, the slash finally dispelled the water prison jutsu. Cho fell on the ground in a bad way. Despite her horrible state, she still got up with the help of her hands. Fujin, Hoka, and Mieko were about to make a move when Renjiro flickered right behind her. He hit the back of her head and knocked her unconscious. He looked at his students and said, if you can take them hostage in a convenient situation, do that. Don't go for the kill just for being competitive. That immediately made his students feel embarrassed. They didn't reply and moved forward. The 5 Chunins who were hiding also came out as the fight was over. The 7 Chunins who arrived later felt a bit embarrassed as they didn't contribute anything. Most of the work was done by kids less than half their age. Only Hataka smiled, thinking, now they will know how I felt. They all observed Cho. She was lying unconscious on her front side. Her legs were severed. They were bleeding a lot. There were many cuts on her thighs and abdomen. Her clothes were almost non-existent. Renjiro opened a scroll and summoned a seal from it. He put the seal on Cho's back and made a hand sign. The seal immediately spread on her entire body. Fujin looked at it and asked, is this chakra suppression seal? Renjiro nodded and said, yes. When she wakes up, she won't be able to access her chakra until I or a seal master removes it. Fujin saw Cho's chakra getting sealed while thinking, I thought only Jiraiya made these for Naruto. I guess he just made an advanced one as normal ones might not work on Jinchurikis. Renjiro looked at the patrol teams and asked, are any of you a medical ninja? A ninja stepped forward and said, yes, I can use mystical palm jutsu. Renjiro moved aside and said, stop her bleeding. The medical ninja moved forward and used mystical palm jutsu on her wounds. Since there were a lot of cuts on her body, he needed quite some time to heal her. After stopping the bleeding, he bandaged her body. While he was healing her, Mieko asked Renjiro, Sensei, since we aren't injured, we can undertake the next part of the mission too, right? Hoka and Fujin immediately looked at Renjiro. Renjiro nodded and said, yes. We will take a rest tomorrow to recover our chakra. Then we will move towards the land of hot water on the day after tomorrow. Mieko grinned on hearing that. Most chunins never get to go on a rank mission. However, she would have 3 under her belt. Hoka and Fujin smiled as well. Fighting against real ninjas was a lot more fun as compared to bandits. Renjiro looked at his happy students and said, for now, store their bodies. They nodded and stored the bodies of the 3 dead ninjas. After storing, they handed all the scrolls to Renjiro, who stored them all in one single scroll. After the medical ninja was done healing Cho, Renjiro asked, how long will she be out? The medical ninja thought for a bit and replied, she has lost a lot of blood. She will be out for at least a few hours. Renjiro thought for a bit and said, all right. Carry her to the command outpost. We will come along with you. He nodded and lifted Cho and put her on his back. The 12 Konoha ninjas ran back towards the outpost where they met Akimichi Seiichi. On reaching the outpost, Renjiro looked at one of the chunins and said, call Seiichi back here. The chunin nodded and left. Renjiro looked at the medical ninja who was carrying Cho and said, restrain her to a chair. And gag her so that she doesn't try to kill herself by biting her tongue. The medical ninja nodded and entered the outpost. After a few minutes, Seiichi returned to the outpost as well along with 3 other ninjas. Seiichi looked at Renjiro thinking, why are they back so quickly? He looked at Renjiro and asked, did you find any of them? Renjiro nodded and replied, yes. Both intruding squads have been dealt with. The one with the 6 members is all dead. And we took the commanding jounin from the 2nd squad as a prisoner. The remaining are dead. Seiichi was shocked on hearing that. An Inazuka chunin standing behind him blurted in disbelief, no way. We have been hunting them for over 2 days and didn't manage to do anything at all. How did you neutralize them in under 2 hours? Renjiro and his students glared at the chunin who said that. Realizing his mistake, he quickly said, apologies, I didn't mean that. Renjiro ignored him. Seiichi looked at his subordinate and thought, what he said was improper. Except I was going to say the same thing. I can understand Renjiro annihilating 1 squad. But how were both neutralized so soon? Renjiro smirked, noticing his former teammate's expression. He handed him a scroll and said, it contains the dead bodies of those 9 ninjas. The last one is restrained inside. Seiichi sighed and took the scroll. He said in a defeated tone, even at this age you continue to surprise me. Renjiro laughed and replied, well, in this case it was mostly my students. Anyways, my students are tired. Can you make sleeping arrangements for them? Seiichi nodded and looked at one of his subordinates. The subordinate immediately made sleeping arrangements for the trio. Fujin, Hoka, and Mieko all ate a few ration bars and fell asleep. They had rushed a long distance and fought 2 battles on the same day. Chapter 125, Exploring the Patrol Outpost. While his students went to sleep, Renjiro decided to catch up with his old friend. He and Seiichi chatted for a long while, recalling their old memories and sharing their new ones. After chatting, Renjiro made a report and attached it to a messenger hawk. The hawk flew towards Konoha. After a long sleep, the trio woke up. They freshened up and met up with Renjiro, who was having breakfast with Seiichi. Seiichi looked at them and said, come join in. Having learnt a lot about them from Renjiro, Seiichi had a much better impression of them. The trio didn't engage in any formalities and joined them. However, on seeing the food on the table, all 3 had the same thought, how the heck is this a breakfast? The entire table was filled with roasted meat. Fujin grabbed 1 slice and ate it. His expression immediately changed, fuck. This is so good. He ignored everyone and began eating rapidly. Hoka and Mieko looked at Fujin and grabbed a bite too. They too began eating quickly but paid attention to their manners. Seiichi laughed lightly on seeing them all eat quickly and said, no need to hurry. The food isn't going to run away. All 3 nodded. Seiichi smiled on seeing them nod obediently. However, soon he was speechless. All 3 kids ignored his advice and kept eating at the same speed. Renjiro chuckled at Seiichi's reaction. Fujin meanwhile thought, and Akimichi saying the food won't run away. As if anyone would believe that. After eating, Fujin asked, what do we do today, sensei? Renjiro replied, just rest. Take a tour of the patrol outposts and go on patrols if you get bored. It'll be helpful if in the future you get posted for patrol duties. Don't waste your chakra though. We need to leave tomorrow morning. Fujin replied, "Oh, alright sensei." He thought, I never thought about the ninjas who are out for patrol. I wonder how many ninjas are deployed like this. After thinking a bit, he concluded, probably not a lot considering the vast number of bandits in this country. The job seems boring, though it could be a good way to explore this country. Seiichi called for Hataka, who arrived soon. He said, since you guys fought together yesterday, I'll leave you guys under his care. Hataka, show them the outpost and how patrol teams work. Hataka replied, sure Seiichi-sama. He looked at the trio and said, come with me. Fujin, Mieko, and Hoka followed him. As Hataka showed them around, Hiruzen read the report sent by Renjiro. A worry formed on his face as he analyzed, the civil war inside Kiri is spilling into other countries. There might be more such incidents in the future. I should deploy some Umbu squads along the coastline. He looked at an Umbu ninja hiding in his office. Realizing that the Hokage needed him, he appeared in front of Hiruzen. Hiruzen commanded, call Hound and his Umbu squad. The Umbu ninja nodded and flickered. Hataka led the trio around the patrol outpost. He said, this is the command outpost for Konoha's eastern borders. This is why it is so big and well-maintained. There are many smaller outposts all over the country. But they only have the basic facilities. Fujin thought, no wonder. This outpost is big. I only expected there to be one house at max. Hataka showed them around the important locations in the outpost and introduced them to some of his friends. In the end, they climbed on a watchtower. On reaching the top, the trio admired the scenery around them. The houses in the outpost were arranged symmetrically, and it was surrounded by lush green forests. To add to it, the sun had just begun rising. So rays of sunlight traveled right above the trees. Fujin, Mieko, and Hoka felt incredible calmness on seeing this sight. Fujin thought, what a sight. Perhaps after the whole Kagaya mess is over, I should tour this world. I wonder what exists in this world apart from the hidden villages. Seeing the three kids lost in the scenery, Hataka smiled and didn't say anything. After some time, they stopped looking at it. Mieko said, I didn't think we would get to see such a beautiful sight in a patrol outpost. Hoka added, yeah, this feels wonderful. Fujin nodded. Hataka laughed and said, such sceneries are the main reason why most here have taken patrolling tasks. Beautiful scenery, freedom from daily worries at home and lax responsibilities are the plus points of this job. Situations like yesterday are rare in peacetime. Usually we just go on routine patrols without finding any disturbances. Fujin looked at Hataka and wondered, so how did so many ninja cross into the land of fire during our last mission? Did the patrol teams just do a terrible job or were some of them bribed? There is another possibility. Did Konoha purposefully let them in so that they could be annihilated without any opportunity to run? Hoka asked Hataka, can you take us to patrol? Hoka wanted to know as many of his seniors and elders from the Hyuga clan often undertook patrol missions. Hataka nodded, sure. Let's go. He jumped off the watchtower. Hoka, Mieko, and Fujin followed him. They left the outpost and entered the forests, and ran on tree branches at moderate speeds. Hataka said, I am just taking you on a random patrolling mission. Usually, all patrol teams have set routes that they have to patrol daily. And there are a few teams that patrol randomly to guard against someone who might know our patrol routes and uses that to avoid us. Hoka said, that's smart. That will make hiding very difficult. Hataka nodded and added, in addition, every patrol team has one ninja from Inazuka, Hyuga, or Aburame clans. So our range is much larger and any intruder has to consider all aspects if they want to hide from us. The trio nodded. They were aware of the specialties of each clan. Hataka took them on a 2-hour-long patrol. Fujin and Hoka used their abilities to help Hataka on the patrol mission. But they didn't find anything out of the ordinary. They returned back to the outpost. Not having anything to do, they spent their remaining day meditating. During lunch and breakfast, they interacted with others in the outpost. In the evening, an Umbu squad entered the outpost. They entered the main building. Renjiro and Seiichi were playing shogi. They both turned to see 4 Umbu ninjas. The leader of the 4 had silver hair and wore a kitsune mask. Both realized who the Umbu captain was. Chapter 126, Interrogation. Kakashi looked at the 2 jounins and stepped forward. He handed them a letter and said, "The Hokage has assigned us the mission to escort the prisoner and carry the dead bodies back to Konoha." Renjiro and Seiichi nodded. Renjiro took out a scroll and handed it to Kakashi and said, "The bodies of the 9 dead ones are in this scroll." Kakashi took the scroll and stored it properly. Seiichi got up and said, "Follow me. I'll take you to the prisoner." Kakashi and his squad followed Seiichi and Renjiro. They entered a small room. At the center of this room was a chair. A woman was sitting in it. Her arms were tied to the arms of the chair. Her legs were missing. A gag was stuffed in her mouth. Her head had dropped down. She was being watched by 2 chunins. One of them was a medical ninja, Renjiro said. "We investigated her a bit. Her name is Cho and she is a jounin from the Sakai clan. She can use the boil release." Seiichi added, "We injected her with anesthesia, but her body is very resistant to it. She wakes up after 2 hours and has to be injected again." Kakashi nodded and said, "That won't be an issue. Can you wake her up?" The medical ninja stepped forward and began waking up. He looked at one of his squad members and said, "Ferret, put her to sleep." After some time, Cho woke up. She looked at Renjiro and the Umbu ninjas. A terrified look appeared in her eyes. Itachi, who was the Umbu with the codename Ferret, stepped in front of her and looked into her eyes. Cho looked at the Umbu in front of her as his eyes turned red. Itachi cast a genjutsu on her, making her fall into a deep sleep. Itachi stepped back and said, "It's done. She won't wake up for a day." Kakashi nodded. He looked at Renjiro and said, "We will be taking her. Thank you for completing the mission. There are further orders from Lord Hokage. Her capture shouldn't be talked about. Discuss with everyone who knows that she has been captured and tell them to not talk about it to anyone. If they have already spoken to others or anyone knows about her capture, then chat with them as well and impose a gagging order. Lord Hokage has said that this is very important." Seiichi replied, "My men haven't met with anyone else. But probably everyone in the outpost knows about her. I will talk with them and impose a gagging order about this." Kakashi nodded and said, "Thank you." One of Kakashi's Umbu subordinates untied Cho and carried her. Kakashi and his squad took their leave and left for Konoha. Fujin and his teammates would remain ignorant about the terrible fate awaiting the jounin captured by them. They slept peacefully as Cho was carried to Konoha. They woke up early the next morning and assembled with Renjiro. Seiichi got up early as well to bid farewell to them. He said, "See you later, Renjiro. Stop by here while returning to Konoha." Renjiro nodded, "Sure. We could use a good sleep." Seiichi looked at the kids and smiled. "Take care, all of you. Come back safely." Mieko replied, "Don't worry, we will complete the mission in no time." Fujin nodded and added, "Just make that roasted meat again when we are back." Seiichi's sweat dropped thinking, "These 3 ate half my share yesterday." He smiled and said, "I'll be sure to hunt some wild beasts for you guys." They said goodbyes and left for the land of hot water. While Team Renjiro was headed to the land of hot water, Kakashi and his squad returned to Konoha. They imprisoned her in the TNI department. Ibiki waited with them in the prison. Understanding the importance, Hiruzen himself showed up. Seeing Hiruzen, all 4 Umbu respectfully greeted him, "Lord Hokage." Hiruzen nodded and looked at Cho. He looked at Itachi and said, "Wake her up from the genjutsu and place her under a new one. I want to interrogate her." At that time, another person entered the prison. He was an old man. His right arm was concealed within and hanging inside his black robe. His right eye was bandaged. Hiruzen looked at him and asked, "Danzo, why are you here?" Danzo looked at Cho and said, "I heard about taking a prisoner from Kiri. Continue your interrogation, I will discuss it with you later." Hiruzen nodded and looked at Itachi. Itachi stepped forward and dispelled the genjutsu. Cho woke up and looked up. However, Itachi put her in another genjutsu. After she fell into the genjutsu, Itachi removed the gag stuffed in her mouth. He looked at Hiruzen and said, "You can ask her questions, Lord Hokage." Hiruzen looked at Ibiki and said, "Ask her about why they entered the Land of Fire." Ibiki nodded and asked Cho, "Why did your squad enter the Land of Fire?" Cho answered, "My team was on a mission in the Land of Water. Unfortunately, we were discovered by a squad from Mizuki's faction. They chased us relentlessly. We clashed a few times and were injured. The chase brought us close to the Land of Fire and we entered it hoping to find a good hiding place till they left us. I didn't think they would chase us inside the land of fire as well. Ibiki noted what she said. He asked, "What was your mission?" Cho answered, "We got information that the Karatachi family had documents and maps that showed where all the ninjas in the Mizukage faction were deployed. Since the family head of Karatachi was in a battle, we got a mission to steal those documents." The mission parameters surprised everyone in the room. Danzo immediately wanted to get his hands on those documents. Ibiki asked, "Did you complete the mission?" Cho answered, "Yes, we stole the documents successfully." Ibiki asked, "Where are those documents?" Cho answered, "Since we were being chased, we hid them in a secure location in the land of water." Ibiki asked, "Will anyone be collecting those documents?" Cho answered, "There is one ninja who checks that spot frequently. By now it would have been collected and reached the hands of the Sakai clan patriarch." Ibiki asked her where the secure location was and noted it down. Ibiki asked, "Did you see the locations where the forces of the Mizukage faction are located?" Cho answered, "No." After asking, he looked at Hiruzen. Hiruzen said, "Ask her about the situation of the Sakai clan, other bloodline clans, and the current state of the conflict. Also, ask her about their current hideouts and where the clans are located." Danzo added, "Also ask her if they have hidden some family members in safe locations." Ibiki nodded and began questioning. He ended up questioning Cho for over 3 hours. Konoha got information about the locations of bloodline clans, locations of some of their secret hideouts, the number of ninjas they had, the losses they faced, the losses they inflicted upon the Mizukage faction, skills and weaknesses of their strongest fighters, and some other miscellaneous information. While the information she provided wasn't complete, she ended up providing a lot of valuable information to Konoha. The rebel faction of Kirigakure would have never imagined that their mission to steal information from the Mizukage faction would result in their secrets getting exposed to Konoha. Chapter 127, Horrible Fate. After getting all the information, Cho was restrained again. Hiruzen looked at the Umbu squad and Ibiki and said, "Good work. Don't tell anyone about her being taken as captive to anyone." They nodded and left the prison. While leaving, Itachi's face was grim, though no one noticed it under his mask. Or rather, no one apart from Hiruzen and Danzo, who observed him carefully. Understanding the disastrous consequences of civil war made him realize the catastrophe that would fall on Konoha if the Uchiha clan were to rebel. It planted a seed to avoid a civil war at all costs inside his heart. As he left, both Hiruzen and Danzo exchanged eye contact. Danzo understood why Hokage had assigned the squad Itachi was in on this mission. They didn't speak about Itachi as no words needed to be spoken. Danzo looked at Hiruzen and said, "She provided a lot of information. We need to cross-check with the information provided by our spies to confirm that there were no traps hidden in the information." Hiruzen nodded and replied, "Send a root ninja who has the information to my office. I will have him cross-check our information with an Umbu ninja." Danzo nodded. He looked at Hiruzen, who seemed to be in thought. Danzo asked, "What are you thinking about?" Hiruzen looked at him and replied, "Do you remember the proposal that we received from the rebel faction before the Chunin exams?" Danzo nodded. Hiruzen continued, "I thought it was weird that the Terumi clan patriarch reached out to us. Now it seems like it was the idea of Terumi Mei. She has the bloodline of both Terumi as well as Sakai clans, and is able to use 2 Kekii Genkai. Looks like she will be the next leader in Kiri." Danzo replied, "Yes, it was likely her. 2 Kekii Genkai in the same person isn't threatening if they don't train well. But her leadership skills and charisma are good as well. She might become a threat. We should eliminate her." Hiruzen shook his head and replied, "The 4th Mizukage is a perfect Jinchuriki. He will be difficult to defeat. Let them exhaust each other's potential. Konoha doesn't need to involve itself and suffer any losses. After the civil war ends, we will talk with the winner." Danzo wanted to argue, but Hiruzen had made a good point. With the losses Kiri had taken due to the civil war, Kiri would be in no position to participate in a war for over a decade at least. Hiruzen looked at Danzo and felt something odd. Knowing Danzo, he predicted that he would have started a debate there. He asked, "Why are you here? It wouldn't be just for the information, right?" Danzo looked at Cho and said, "I want Sakai Cho." Hiruzen looked at Danzo in confusion. However, in less than a second his eyes widened and he declined, "No." However, this time Danzo would not relent. This was the true reason why he visited the prison. He said, "Hiruzen, there are only 2 clans that have Kekii Genkai in Konoha. And one of them is about to rebel. With the Senju being unable to produce any wood Kekii Genkai ninja, we need to recruit other Kekii Genkai into our village. And they have to be loyal to Konoha. If we don't strengthen ourselves, then every time we have a weak moment, an incident similar to the Hyuga incident will keep repeating. Now that our forces are getting stabilized, we need to do everything to make ourselves stronger." Danzo's argument struck a chord in Hiruzen's heart. The Hyuga incident hurt him a lot. The weak state of Konoha had made him indecisive and reluctant. And that cost Konoha an innocent life. Danzo didn't speak anymore. He knew Hiruzen very well. Hiruzen thought for a few minutes and said, "If the other villages were to realize, they might attack Konoha together." Danzo scoffed and replied, "In every war we keep getting attacked by all 4 villages. So it doesn't make a difference. Also, I will induct the kids into the root. So they won't be exposed to the world. Even inside Konoha, no one will know their origin. Besides, awakening Kekii Genkai is difficult. Very few awaken it. If someone awakens, we will expose the first one who awakens and say that he created the Kekii Genkai by combining fire and water natures. If anyone awakens it after him, we will hide that person inside the root." If Fujin was to hear this conversation, he'd be shocked. After all, he thought that a Kekii Genkai can only be inherited through the bloodline. Without it, there was no way to be able to use a Kekii Genkai. After all, even talented ninjas who had mastered all elements like Hiruzen and Kakashi never learned any Kekii Genkai. Hiruzen sighed. He thought, "He has done thorough preparation. I don't think I can win this debate. So what to do?" He thought for a bit and finally looked at Sakai Cho. He sighed, "She is already a waste. If we release her, she will hate Konoha with all her heart and use all her influence to make her clan take an anti-Konoha stance. If the bloodline clans win, our relationship will be sour." Looking at Hiruzen, Danzo understood what he was thinking. He said, "The way ahead will be to deny meeting the squad from the rebel faction. We will deny knowing their existence. Remove their mentions from the reports. If the bloodline faction wins in Kiri and asks us about it, we will feign ignorance and push the blame on the Mizukage faction. Since the squad from the Mizukage faction died at the hands of Konoha ninjas, we can even claim that we took revenge for the bloodline faction. So we will be able to use this incident to better our relations. However, for that to happen, she needs to disappear." Hiruzen sighed again and agreed, "All right. But ensure that no information about her leaks out. And all the progress has to be reported to me in secret." Danzo nodded. He was about to leave when he had a thought. He stopped and asked, "Hiruzen, which team was assigned this mission?" They were very thorough. Danzo had rushed here in a hurry. So he wasn't aware which squad had undertaken this mission. Hiruzen answered, "It was Senju Renjiro and his students." Danzo's left eye widened. But it returned to normal quickly. He said, "They are efficient. I want to induct them into the root." Hiruzen raised his left eyebrow and looked at Danzo. However, he couldn't figure out anything from his poker face. Hiruzen replied, "One of his students is a Hyuga. They are not suitable for the root. Another is an Uchiha who is arrogant even by their standards. Good luck convincing her into joining the root." Danzo scoffed in displeasure. However, that was an act. He was interested in the wind user. While speaking, Hiruzen realized that Danzo's target should be Fujin. The others were just spoken as a distraction. Hiruzen continued, "The third one is a civilian orphan. He could have been inducted into the root. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's too late." Danzo, who was hopeful about getting Fujin, felt like Hiruzen had played with him. He asked, "Why is it late? He isn't even a teenager yet. While it's true that the root mostly inducts 5 to 6 years old kids, we can still recruit older ones." Hiruzen shook his head and said, "That boy is too headstrong. He wouldn't agree to have any seal put on him. He won't be a good match for the root. Besides, I already have plans for him." Danzo raised his left eyebrow and asked, "What plans?" Hiruzen smirked and answered, "I will be inducting him into the Umbu and training him to be a negotiator for Konoha." Danzo had a lot of thoughts about what Hiruzen might say. However, this one left him dumbfounded. Chapter 128, Dodged a Bullet. Danzo stared at Hiruzen. After half a minute, he said, "Hiruzen, the role of negotiator is for senior members in the village. Experience is important. What do you mean by sending someone who hasn't even entered his teens to represent Konoha during negotiations? Hiruzen chuckled and replied, our current negotiators are either too soft or too strict. While we do find a middle ground, we usually get the short end of the stick. Danzo scoffed and accused, it's your fault for being so soft. Don't accuse the rest of us. Hiruzen shook his head and replied, and your methods are way too harsh. We would be at war all the time if your ideas are followed. And of course I won't send someone inexperienced to do the final negotiations for us. He will be among the first round of negotiators. And his task will be to annoy them just enough that the negotiations still stay on the table, and we will have an advantage when we negotiate later. Danzo was surprised by Hiruzen's words and confidence. He wondered, what exactly did Hiruzen see in that boy? Hiruzen looked at Danzo and thought, on second thought, the prospect of sending Fujin to the route would be hilarious. Danzo tends to make promises while recruiting. If Fujin does enter the route, I wonder how often he will ask Danzo for a new jutsu. Danzo was about to say something, when Hiruzen interrupted, leave it. He is off the table. His talent would be wasted in the route. Seeing Hiruzen being stubborn, Danzo nodded and left. If Fujin was to learn about this conversation, he would sigh. In relief and comment, phew. Barely dodged the bullet. That said, even without Hiruzen denying it, Fujin wouldn't have entered the route. While Danzo led the route and was very influential, he couldn't force anyone to join. He resorted to patriotism, offering rewards, blackmailing with closed ones, or lying in order to recruit existing ninjas to the route. However, neither of these four tactics would have worked on Fujin. While leaving, Danzo thought, that didn't go as expected. I didn't expect Hiruzen to be so stubborn about an orphan. Doesn't matter. I was only slightly interested in him due to his potential in wind nature manipulation. There's no point in wasting more effort on him. Danzo left and didn't think about Fujin again. Years later, he would hear about Fujin's exploits in the battlefields. In one such battle, Fujin's fame would explode throughout the ninja world. That battle would make Danzo regret not trying hard enough to recruit him. And the biggest regret would be when he dies by the hands of the orphan he attached no importance to. Team Renjiro ran at full speed for around 7 hours. The borders of the land of hot water were close to where the hideout was. While the hot spring hidden village was quite far away, the town that they were headed to was in the southern part of the land of hot water. Hence, it was much closer to them. After 7 hours, they entered Niigata town. On entering, Fujin commented, we entered into another country and then into their second biggest town and still haven't encountered even one ninja. Do they not have ninjas? Or are they too lazy to patrol? Renjiro chuckled and answered, only the 5 big hidden villages maintain frequent patrols. Even among the 5 big villages, Kiri and Suna don't do regular patrols due to the harsh terrain. In smaller villages, only the VIPs have good protection. If common people are in danger, then they issue missions to villages like ours. Fujin thought for a bit. He put up a sad face and said, I see. But in that case, the lives of the common people here are very vulnerable. They have no protection. Any rogue ninja can kill them and run away. If he hides well, then they won't even get justice. Renjiro looked at Fujin for a few seconds. He sighed and replied, unfortunately, that is the world we live in. There is nothing we can do. Fujin showed a sad face and didn't reply. Renjiro thought, though he is greedy, Fujin has a good heart. At the same time, Fujin thought, I don't think I can get any more jutsus from Renjiro. But improving my image even more would be beneficial. It might be of help if I need something from Tsunade in the future. She is of the same clan after all. Mieko and Hoka watched Fujin and Renjiro. They began thinking about the sad state of affairs in the smaller villages as well. They began walking towards the center of the town. Renjiro said, well, no need to be entirely down. Though there isn't much protection, the major towns have a garrison. Perhaps every town might have a garrison in the future. That would provide a good degree of protection to them. Fujin nodded and said, yeah, that could be a good start. They reached the center of the town. A mansion stood there. On seeing them, a watchman immediately invited them in while his partner ran inside to inform someone. The watchman said, welcome. Takuhei-sama has been expecting you. Renjiro nodded and followed him inside the mansion. On entering, a large man appeared in front of them. He was 7 feet 5 inches in height and was very fat. Seeing him, the same thought ran through the minds of Fujin, Mieko, and Hoka. Did an Akimichi migrate here? He is huge even by their standards. Behind him, for more people were standing. Takeshita Takuhei smiled and said, Senju Renjiro, I have heard a lot about you. Renjiro smiled and replied, Takeshita Takuhei, I have heard about you too. Takuhei said, we were expecting you to arrive a bit sooner. Renjiro replied, we had some troubles too. So we were delayed. Takuhei nodded and looked at the kids behind Renjiro. He frowned and thought, the mission didn't mention any strict timelines. So I can't bug him more about it. But the mission focused more on the strength of the ninjas. Renjiro is strong, but why did they send kids? Renjiro looked at him and understood what he was thinking. But he didn't comment. Explaining the strength of the ninjas who undertook the mission wasn't a requirement. Completing the mission was all that mattered. Takuhei knew that Renjiro understood his frown. But since he didn't provide any explanation, he decided to drop it while thinking, my own squad should be enough to kill those rogue ninjas. Unfortunately, the daimyo was worried about any losses we might suffer and hence issued a mission to Konoha. If they are weak, they will die. Renjiro asked, what are the details of those rogue ninjas? Also, where are they currently at? Takuhei looked at a subordinate. Takeshita Shunso stepped forward. He said, until now we have detected 13 rogue ninjas. We have calculated that there are 2 more. All of them are ninjas from the land of water. Among the 13 ninjas there are 3 jounins and 10 chunins. Their leader is Kubota Mitsuzuka. He is a veteran jounin. The others under his command are experienced too. Some of them are ninjas who were assigned under him in the 3rd Great Ninja Ward. We haven't found their base. But looking at their movements, we have calculated their base to be near the coastline towards the southeast direction. Renjiro analyzed the information and said, good work. We won't have to waste time to find them. Takuhei said, Renjiro, while we do know their approximate location, we don't know their exact location. Renjiro replied, don't worry. Leave that to us. We will take a break today. Tomorrow at 4 a.m. we will leave. Have your team be prepared. Takuhei wanted to leave immediately. But he understood that they had traveled a long distance. He nodded and said, all right. Shunso, arrange for their resting area. Shunso led them to the arranged rooms. After he left, Fujin, Mieko, and Hoka stared at Renjiro. They wanted answers. Chapter 129, Joint Mission. Renjiro looked at his students' faces and chuckled. Mieko was annoyed. She asked, why are they coming with us too? Renjiro answered, it's a joint mission. You didn't expect to take on more than a dozen ninjas with just us 4, did you? A scowl formed on Mieko's face. Hoka sighed and said, it would have been fun to fight them ourselves. Fujin said, apart from that big guy who has a lot of chakra, the others don't seem that strong. So we should be getting more opportunities to fight than you think. Hoka smiled and said, that's more like it. Renjiro was speechless at his students once again. He thought, did they just hope that their allies fail in completing the mission just so that they get to fight more? He let out a cough to attract their attention and said, take a rest for the day. You need to be in top condition, Tomo. Row morning. The trio nodded. Fujin asked, Sensei, when you take the rank S missions, do you perform them alone or do you go with a team? Renjiro was surprised by the question. He answered, depends on the mission. For example, in missions like these that include elimination, I have a team. We need members to find them and to ensure that none of them run away. Fujin heard the reply and thought, that makes sense. I guess the solo missions could contain protecting someone secretly or an assassination mission. He looked at Renjiro and asked, Sensei, do you have information regarding Takuhei and Mitsuzuka? Renjiro answered, I checked Takuhei's information before taking this mission. He is a veteran jounin and was one of the commanders of the village hidden in hot springs in the previous war, but there isn't much of a record of him fighting. His job was to ensure that they don't get caught in between our and Kumo's clashes. Apart from that, he is known for his earth release and high physical strength. As for Mitsuzuka, he specializes in water release like most Kiri ninjas. And he is quick on his feet. I fought him a couple of times in the previous war. Renjiro looked at Fujin and chuckled. His fighting style is actually quite similar to yours. Though he knows a few rank jutsus, he prefers to indulge in hit-and-run tactics and fights from a long range. Mieko and Hoka's faces scowled on hearing that. Both snorted and looked at Fujin. Fujin wondered, oh, I wonder how I would fare against him. Mieko and Hoka were about to protest. They didn't want Fujin to fight the enemy leader while they dealt with scrubs. However, Renjiro spoke first. Renjiro's face got serious as he spoke. He will be my target. I am confident that I can win against him, but you three need to stay on guard. If he manages to slip a water clone away, he will attack you in the back when you are in midst of battle. So keep your guard up all the time. The three recognized the seriousness in Renjiro's voice. They nodded their heads immediately. Renjiro added, just like the last fight, there won't be any weaklings among them. And unlike last time, we won't have the advantage of being in home territory. Also, don't chase them if they manage to escape into the sea. Neither of you three is trained in how to fight a battle in the sea. They agreed. The Kiri ninjas had fought in seas all their life. While they could fight on water, they would be at a disadvantage against Kiri ninjas. Especially as only Hoka had some affinity to the water element. The trio asked for more information from Renjiro. Renjiro provided the information he knew as well as warned them about several things they should pay attention to. They also decided on some strategies to follow during the mission. After discussing, they spent the rest of the day doing light warm-ups and meditation. While Team Renjiro was discussing, Takuhei and his subordinates were discussing as well. While Shunso was showing Team Renjiro the rooms, Takuhei's subordinates began expressing their displeasure. Seo Shisaku said, we asked Konoha for strong reinforcements. Why did they send little brats? Etsuko Nakamura added, yes. These brats could get in our way when we fight. If they let their opponents get away, we could end up getting ambushed. Takuhei-sama, we need to consider this joint mission carefully. Takuhei heard them. He began analyzing the actions of Konoha. Seeing that he was lost in thoughts, Nakamura called him out again, Takuhei-sama? Takuhei looked at him. He replied, let's not jump to conclusions. Konoha has an excellent track record of completing missions. So they might have some plans for sending those kids. His subordinates gave him a weird look. Shisaku said, do you really think that those kids will be any useful? Takuhei shrugged his hands. He answered, if they weren't, why would Konoha send them? And Renjiro wasn't bothered when I looked at them skeptically. Besides, we wanted to complete this mission on our own anyways. So their strength doesn't matter much. In fact, if we perform far better than Konoha's squad, then I can persuade the daimyo to increase funding to build a proper ninja force in our country. If we manage to do that, then we won't have to depend on Konoha. The eyes of his subordinates widened. Shisaku said, that's a great plan, Takuhei-sama. Takuhei nodded and said, so give your all to this mission. As long as we outperform Renjiro's squad, we will be able to get some benefits from the daimyo. They waited for Shunso to return. When he did, they discussed their strategy and tactics for the next day. The next day, at 3:45 a.m., Renjiro's and Takuhei's squads gathered in the mansion. Fujin, Hoka, and Mieko observed Takuhei's squad. In addition to the 4 they saw the day before, there were 3 more Chunin-level ninjas in his squad. Along with their own squad, they now had 12 ninjas. Fujin observed them and thought, as long as we manage to kill a few Kiri ninjas in the initial sneak attack, we should outnumber them. So this might be an easy mission as well. Takuhei looked at Renjiro and smiled. He asked, Renjiro, did you guys rest well? Renjiro nodded and replied, we did. Are you guys prepared? Takuhei nodded. Renjiro looked at Shunso and asked, have you marked the locations on the map? Shunso nodded and laid a map on the floor. Everyone observed the map carefully. The towns and villages in the land of hot water were marked on the map. And a location was marked on the southeastern coastline. Shunso pointed at the map saying, this is our current location. According to what we have calculated, their base is around here, which is around 40 kilometers from our location. Renjiro nodded. He looked at the map once again and then said, all right, let's move. We will hit them before the sun rises. Some of Takuhei's subordinates frowned upon hearing that. Shisaku said, I have something to say. Renjiro looked at him. Takuhei said, go ahead. Shisaku said, though we have calculated their current location, we still have to be careful about any traps they may have set up. So we need to proceed slowly and carefully. It would be preferable to attack when the sun rises. Renjiro shook his head and replied, don't worry about the traps. We will take care of them. Let's move. Without waiting for their reply, Renjiro turned around and began leaving the mansion. His students followed him while secretly laughing. Shisaku was mad at having his suggestion dismissed so lightly. However, Takuhei looked at him and shook his head. Soon they too followed Renjiro. Chapter 130, Pre-Dawn Raid. The entire group exited the town of Niigata stealthily. Even if those rogue Kiri ninjas had any spies in the town, they wouldn't notice them leaving. After leaving, they traveled at a fast speed. They covered the initial 30 kilometers very quickly. The Yugakure ninjas who were looking down on the kids had solemn faces. They were finding it difficult to keep up with them. It was a big blow to their pride. Renjiro looked at their expressions and chuckled. In his experiences, it was always better for actions to do the talking than explaining with words. They traveled the last 10 kilometers with caution. Hoka and Mieko used their jujutsus to check for traps and enemies. Fujin didn't use his chakra field. If the enemy had any sensor, then they would sense Fujin's chakra field and give away their surprise factor. Hoka's Byakugan had no such disadvantage. They reached close to 1 kilometer of the calculated spot, when Hoka said, "Stop." Everyone stopped and looked at him. Hoka moved towards the left as others followed him. After traveling about 100 meters, he stopped. Others stopped behind him. The area in front of Hoka was dyed red in blood. Shunso asked, "Did they have a fight here?" Takuhei bent down and picked up a long hair from the blood. He observed it and said, "Unlikely. They were probably just hunting wild animals. Looks like they got a bear." Fujin observed Takuhei and thought, "He's able to guess an animal just from a hair that is dyed in blood?" Mieko activated her Sharingan and observed the surroundings. After some time she said, "Found a trail." Renjiro said, "Good work. Take the lead. Also, keep an eye out for traps. Hoka, you keep an eye on traps too. And keep an eye for their base as well. Everyone else, don't make unnecessary noise or movements." Everyone nodded. Takuhei commented, "It's very handy to have both the Byakugan and Sharingan in the same squad." Renjiro nodded. They proceeded ahead carefully. Mieko's Sharingan observed every detail of the surroundings carefully. She picked up the slightest clues. She observed their trail perfectly. Surprisingly, they didn't encounter any traps. As they kept walking, they left the forest and entered the beach. Mieko frowned. She said, "The trail leads into the sea." Renjiro and Takuhei both frowned. If the base of the rogue Kiri Nins was in the sea, then fighting them would get very tricky. Shunso spoke, "I don't think that their base would be out in the sea. The nearest island from here is around 32 kilometers away. Traveling from that base would be very time-consuming." Everyone looked at Shunso as he spoke. Shunso continued, "So either their base is nearby or every one of them is a strong Jounin who can travel at twice the speeds of a Chunin." Takuhei immediately shook his head. "There's no way that they are all Jounins. Kiri would be shaken if that many Jounins go rogue." Renjiro said, "There are two possibilities. One is that they have a temporary base here and a permanent one on an island. Or they just travel on shallow waters instead of moving through the forest to prevent any trail." Takuhei nodded and said, "Yes. I believe the second one will be the case. They are rogue ninjas after all. They will be afraid of being hunted down." Renjiro nodded. He too believed the same. He said, "Let's go back to the trees. We will move along the coast while Hoka checks for any possible bases." Takuhei agreed as he thought, "The Hyuga can look up to 1,000 meters. From the edge of the forest, he will be able to check for hundreds of meters into the sea. If their base is truly not here, then we will have no choice but to set up an ambush and wait for them." The group went back into the forest. Seeing their initial trail, the group decided to go in the same direction. After moving for slightly over a kilometer, Hoka stopped. He said, "Found them. They are staying inside a cave on a hill about a kilometer ahead." Shunso grinned. "They think that they are very smart." Fujin wondered, "If they are hiding in a cave, will Renjiro try to kill them all?" Hoka said, "There are 2 ninjas guarding the entrance to the cave." Renjiro said, "Keep moving ahead. I'll kill them both. Fujin, don't attack." Fujin nodded while thinking, "My wind vacuum bullet is good for assassinating. But once it hits, it will alert even a sleeping person due to the trail of destruction it leaves." As they moved ahead, Hoka said, "Other than the 2 guards, there are 14 more ninjas inside. 3 seem to be at the Jounin level. Rest are at the Chunin level." They are all sleeping, Renjiro said. Don't check on them anymore. Hoka didn't understand. He was about to look away from them when he suddenly noticed one of them getting up suddenly. He said, one of the Jounin-level ninjas just woke up. Renjiro frowned. He said, some ninjas instinctively feel when someone looks at them. Though they can't sense the Byakugan, they can feel that something is wrong. Keep that in mind. After saying that, he suddenly flickered ahead. Instantly, Hoka, Fujin and Mieko also flickered. The Yugakure ninjas who were alongside them were dumbfounded. Shisaku exclaimed, "What the fuck?" A scowl formed on Takuhiai's face. He said, "Keep up." He made a few hand signs and flickered as well. Others soon followed him. Inside the cave, Kubota Mitsuzuka was sleeping. However, when Hoka observed him, his eyes suddenly opened up. He immediately got up and checked his surroundings. On seeing that no one was around, he thought, "What the fuck? I swear that someone was fucking looking at me." Thoughts ran inside his mind at the speed of light. He immediately came to the conclusion, fucking Hyuga. Those cowards should have issued a mission to Konoha. He got up and gathered chakra on his right foot and stamped his foot on the ground. A wave passed through the ground. It was harmless, but everyone inside the cave felt it. All the 13 rogue ninjas woke up. Mitsuzuka flickered towards one of the 2 Jounins. On arriving, he shouted, "Fumimaro! Quickly check our surroundings." At the same time, the other rogue ninjas also began arriving at their location. Kubota Mitsuzuka moved very rapidly. However, there was someone who moved even faster. Renjiro flickered thrice in quick succession and reached just around 150 meters from the guards. On reaching here, he noticed that there were a few traps set close to the cave. However, he didn't pay any attention to them. He stepped on the ground and disappeared inside it. A second later, 8 earth spears formed under the 2 unsuspecting guards and pierced them. The guards were shocked. However, even before they could let out a scream, Renjiro appeared from the ground and beheaded them in one smooth action. As soon as he beheaded them, Hoka, Mieko and Fujin appeared behind him. While they were running, Hoka noticed the traps. Mieko took the lead to avoid them and the other 2 followed her. On reaching, they noticed the cave. It was a small hill that was as tall as a 3-story building. There was a giant cave mouth at the bottom which split into a few paths. This hill was around 200 meters from the beach. The rogue ninjas chose this spot so that they won't be visible to anyone who scouts for them from the sea, but still be close to the sea if they needed to escape. As soon as they stepped there, they felt a ground wave passing under their feet. Hoka checked the inside of the cave. He frowned and said, "Everyone is up." Renjiro made a hand sign and said, "I figured." Fujin, Hoka and Mieko watched their sensei as he built up a massive amount of chakra. Behind Team Renjiro, the Yugakure ninjas were following. However, without the Byakugan or the Sharingan, they couldn't identify all the traps. Takuhiai was the first one to notice the traps. He shouted, "Wait! There are traps ahead." However, they were flickering rapidly. 3 of their ninjas ended up activating traps. Immediately, hundreds of needles rained down on them. Takuhiai frowned and made a few hand signs. Inside the cave, Fumimaro spread his chakra field. Fujin felt his chakra field as it expanded past the cave. He quickly said, "They sensed us." Fumimaro immediately sensed the huge chakra built up by Renjiro. He yelled, "Crap! They are right outside the cave and are about to attack us." All the former Kirinins immediately had grim looks on their faces. Ever since they went rogue, they never had to fight against a proper ninja squad. The Mizukage faction was too busy fighting the rebels. They didn't have the time to pay any attention to them. Renjiro put his palms on the walls of the hill. Earth Release, Mountain Destroyer Jutsu. Chapter 131, Chaos Inside the Hill. Earth Release, Mountain Destroyer Jutsu chakra poured from Renjiro's palms into the hill. The hill began collapsing. In merely 3 seconds, the entire hill collapsed. The rogue Kirinins felt the ground under them trembling. In a second, some rocks began falling. Their expressions grew grim. By then, only 11 ninjas had assembled there. 3 still hadn't made it to that room. They understood that they needed to escape. However, escaping to the cave entrance would be very dangerous. Realizing their grim situation, Mitsuzuka made a hand sign. Immediately, a water prison began forming around them. He shouted, "Pour your fucking chakra into this jutsu, everyone." The rogue ninjas wasted no time and immediately began pouring their chakra into Mitsuzuka's water prison jutsu. The water prison became larger and denser as a result of everyone's chakra. Rocks kept falling on it but didn't damage it. However, the first critical time was when the ground under them collapsed. The water prison sphere also fell and maintaining its form became very difficult. Through everyone's desperate efforts they managed to hold on. The second critical time was when the water prison hit the ground after falling. This time they didn't manage to maintain the sphere. The impact on the ground coupled with the rocks falling on it broke the jutsu. However, ninjas used water barrier jutsu to provide protection. Outside the hill, while the hill was collapsing, the Yugakure ninjas were struggling with the traps. Takuhei erected earth walls to protect everyone. The ninjas themselves used kunais to block incoming needles. They managed to withstand the barrage. Takuhei breathed in relief when one of them fell to the ground. Shunso immediately moved towards him. He checked him. Others gathered around him. Shunso said, "He is all right. It's just 2 needles that hit his thighs." He removed the needles and observed them. The others got worried thinking that the needles were poisoned. After checking the needles and the fallen ninja, Shunso said, "The needles are coated with some anesthetic medicine. He will probably sleep for some time." Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Takuhei said, "Shunso, stay here and keep him safe. Others follow me. It looks like they have already begun fighting. We can't be left out." Fujin, Hoka and Mieko got the front row seat to watch a small hill collapse. However, they weren't very surprised. By now they had seen a lot of crazy stunts that Renjiro kept pulling. All 3 immediately focused on the rogue ninjas inside the debris. Fujin spread his chakra field to sense them. There was no more need for maintaining stealth. He made a few hand signs and prepared a wind vacuum bullet. Hoka and Mieko got ready as well. Inside the collapsed hill there was chaos. The 11 who were together managed to avoid critical injuries. However, most of them had minor injuries due to pieces of rocks falling on them. One Chunin had a minor concussion. However, the 3 who weren't along with them suffered. 2 of them specialized in the water element, while the last one specialized in the earth element. All 3 had woken up due to the ground wave produced by Mitsuzuka. However, they were deep in sleep and woke up a few seconds later. By the time they began moving, the hill had already begun collapsing. They didn't understand. Similar thoughts ran through their minds. What the hell happened? We were having the time of our life before we went to sleep. Why is this happening? That too right after we left that shithole. The 2 water affinity ninjas tried protecting themselves, but they were crushed by the rocks. The earth affinity ninja tried going underground. However, the ground under him itself crumbled. But he still managed to build an earth dome to protect himself just in time. He got buried under the debris but stayed alive. Even before the 2 sides had met in combat, Renjiro had almost killed a quarter of their numbers. On seeing his efficiency, Fujin had just one thought: "Need a team my ass." Renjiro made another hand sign and slammed his palms on the ground. Earth release, 1,000 needles jutsu. On seeing Renjiro perform another jutsu, his students, once again, had the same thought running through their minds. They thought, "Please leave one for us too, sensei." At the same time, Mitsuzuka made a few hand signs. Water release, water shock bomb. He spat out a jet of water that hit the debris on top of them. On contact, it exploded and sent the debris flying over. It created a hole for them to escape. However, at that very instant, hundreds of earth needles formed in the ground around them and instantly shot at them. All of them noticed it, however at varying speeds. The ones who noticed the needles forming jumped up the hole immediately. 6 of them managed to jump safely out of the range of the needles. 3 got cut by a few needles that just cut across their flesh. 1 had a dozen needles stabbing him, but none were critical. However, the last one was unfortunate. He was the slowest to notice and jump. He got turned into a pincushion and died. He didn't die alone. The last member of the rogue group who wasn't with them also died to the 1,000 needles jutsu. He had trapped himself inside an earth dome and had no way to get out or defend himself quickly. The number of rogue ninjas dropped to 10. And yet, their misery wasn't over. As soon as they jumped out, they still had to protect themselves from the sneak attacks of the students of the man who made them miserable. The first person to leave the hole was Mitsuzuka. As soon as he left the hole, he saw 3 shurikens targeting him. He quickly deflected them and looked at where the shurikens came from. His eyes landed on Renjiro and Widen. "Edition!" he exclaimed, "Motherfucking Senju Renjiro!" As soon as the rogue nins left the hole, they were greeted by shurikens thrown by Mieko with pinpoint accuracy. Mieko targeted the first two who left the debris. Both were jounins and they easily blocked her shurikens. Unlike Mieko, both Hoka and Fujin could only select one to attack. Hoka felt ambitious. He decided to target a jounin. Whereas Fujin decided to be efficient, Hoka ended up choosing Fumimaro as his target. Fumimaro was the third one to leave the debris. Hoka aimed a vacuum palm at his heart. Fumimaro sensed Hoka attacking him. He spat out a water bullet to counter it. It clashed with the vacuum palm and nullified it. Fujin targeted the fifth person to leave the debris. His chakra was higher than an average chunin. Guessing him to be an elite chunin, Fujin chose him. As soon as he appeared, Fujin shot a vacuum bullet at his heart. Unlike Fumimaro, Fujin's target didn't have sensory capabilities. Additionally, Fujin's vacuum bullet was many times faster than Hoka's vacuum palm. He didn't even see the attack coming and had his heart pierced. The rogue Kiri ninjas finally landed on top of the debris. They watched with grim faces. 7 of them had been killed without them even seeing who their enemy was. At the same time, the Yugakure ninjas also arrived there and landed beside Team Renjiro. Their eyes widened on seeing the scene before them. 2 headless corpses with earth spears piercing through their bodies were next to them. The hill where the rogue ninjas were supposed to be had completely collapsed. And the 9 enemies they saw all had some injuries on them, while the Konoha ninjas didn't even have a scratch on them. Mitsuzuka immediately analyzed the situation and yelled, "Disperse!" He instantly flickered away. The others followed him. Team Renjiro and Takuhei immediately gave chase. Renjiro made a shadow clone. He chased Mitsuzuka while his clone chased Fumimaro. Takuhei went after the third jounin. Fujin, Mieko and Hoka chose a chunin-level target. Mieko and Hoka looked for the ones who have higher chakra amongst the chunins, while Fujin went after the one who was injured. The remaining Yugakure ninjas were slow. They moved around 1 to 2 seconds after the others. Usually, Takuhei would command them, but he was feeling pressure due to their subpar performance so far. So he moved quickly, believing that his subordinates would do their job. They quickly gave chase too. Shisaku went after a chunin alone. The remaining 4 chased in pairs. Chapter 132, The Interference of the Clones. The 10 Konoha and Yugakure ninjas chased after 9 rogue ninjas from Kirigakure. Mitsuzuka noticed the enemy splitting up. He made a hand sign. 3 water clones formed around him. They dispersed in different directions. Renjiro noticed them and made a hand sign too. 3 shadow clones appeared. They chased after the water clones. Renjiro didn't mind this. His chakra was much larger than Mitsuzuka's chakra. And he was confident that the water clones won't be able to interfere in the fights with his students. As for the Yugakure ninjas, he didn't care much. The first one to catch up to his prey was Fujin. Fujin was the second one to flicker among the group. Only Renjiro was faster than him. In addition, Fujin's opponent was injured. He had a dozen needles stuck in his body. Fujin caught up with him with just 2 flickers. On seeing him, he grabbed his sword and rushed at him. This rogue ninja was Imamura Sitaro. He didn't want to fight at close range due to the needles stuck in him. They limited his movements, but he made a few hand signs quickly. Water release, wild water wave jutsu. A 5-meter tall and 20-meter wide wave of water appeared in front of Fujin. Fujin decided to take it head-on. Chakra flowed through Fujin's sword. He grabbed it with both his hands and swung it with a huge force. A horizontal flying slash of wind chakra was sent. It slashed the wave and moved towards Sitaro. The accompanying winds completely dispersed his jutsu. Sitaro was shocked. He had never seen a jutsu like this. He quickly jumped up thinking, what jutsu is this? I recall the samurais sending flying slashes, but it was nothing like this. The slash passed from under him. It cut a lot of trees directly behind him. However, he wasn't uninjured. He was hit by the razor-sharp winds. Numerous cuts appeared on his body. Both his eyes were cut as well. He yelled in pain and horror. In the next second, his heart was hit by an air bullet. He fell down dead. After the rogue ninjas escaped, the first ninja died in under 30 seconds. They would have never imagined such a result. Fujin created a shadow clone to seal and store his body. He grabbed the scroll and moved towards other targets. While Fujin was fighting, the others were still chasing. The 3 jounins successfully escaped into the sea. However, Renjiro and Takuhei chased them into the seas. Mieko and Hoka managed to intercept their targets before they entered the sea. They began fighting. However, they were restricted as they had to ensure that their opponent didn't escape into the sea. All three of the chunins that Yugakure's chunins chased also entered the sea. They followed them. The fight would have entered a deadlock if not for two variables. The first one was Fujin, who killed his opponent in little time. The second variable was the water clones of Mitsuzuka. Mitsuzuka had seen Renjiro stand with the three kids before the Yugakure ninjas arrived. He had speculated that those three were his students. His three water clones rushed towards Fujin, Hoka, and Mieko. Renjiro's shadow clones followed them. Mieko's opponent was Nakani Motoyuki. He was an elite chunin who specialized in the water element. Mieko was faster than him. She and Motoyuki stepped on the beach at the same time. She threw 2 shurikens at him and another 2 shurikens to cut off his escape route to the sea. Motoyuki easily blocked the 2 shurikens. He looked at Mieko with disdain. However, Mieko's eyes turned red. He immediately became very alert. The Sharingan was a nightmare in battle. He was about to escape to the sea when he noticed that the other 2 shurikens had wires attached. Mieko controlled those wires to redirect the shurikens at Motoyuki from the other side at the same time. She used fireball jutsu. Motoyuki moved to dodge the 2 shurikens. While moving, he used water wall jutsu to block the fireball. The fireball hit the water wall and steam spread through the region. Motoyuki immediately made a few hand signs. The mist began gathering in the region. Mieko frowned as she noticed the mist getting formed. She was about to make a move when she felt danger. She immediately moved to her right. A water bullet passed through her previous location. If she hadn't moved, it would have hit her heart. Mitsuzuka's water clone beat Renjiro's shadow clone in reaching this battlefield. However, it didn't accomplish anything as Mieko dodged it, and Motoyuki couldn't take any advantage of the opening it provided. Spikes formed under the water clone. The water clone quickly moved out of the way. Renjiro's shadow clone had also appeared on this battlefield. Mieko observed both with her Sharingans and realized that they were clones. Renjiro's clone made a few hand signs. Great breakthrough jutsu. The jutsu cleared out all the mist and steam. While the jutsu was harmless, the water clone was vulnerable. He immediately used water wall jutsu to protect himself. Renjiro's clone appeared next to Mieko. Mieko grinned. She hadn't had the opportunity to fight alongside Renjiro as an equal yet. Neither did Fujin or Hoka. She was sure that she was the first among her teammates. Renjiro said, "While I am still here, we can fight even in water. I'll take care of it." Mieko nodded and said, "All right, sensei." The 1v1 turned into 2v2. Both sides would be stuck in a deadlock. The situation with Hoka was similar. He tried dominating with his taijutsu, but his opponent managed to keep his distance. However, vacuum palm proved to be a huge challenge for him. They were in a deadlock until Renjiro and Mitsuzuka's clones entered the battlefield. Due to Hoka's Byakugan, no sneak attack was possible. It just turned into a 2v2 in the same way as Hoka and Mieko got attacked. The last water clone of Mitsuzuka went towards Fujin. Unfortunately for him, Fujin's fight was already over. He immediately sensed 2 chakra signatures moving towards him. Fujin frowned. One chakra signature belongs to Renjiro. But it is much weaker. Should be a clone. Who is the other guy? Is it a clone too? Or a new enemy? Mitsuzuka's water clone frowned as well. He felt that he was sensed. He thought, his students are so fucking bothersome. All 3 have some sort of sensory abilities. How the fuck should I sneak attack them? The aspect that made Mitsuzuka a terrible enemy was his ability to make perfect sneak attacks. Unfortunately, that ability was almost made useless. He frowned thinking, I made the wrong choice. I should have gone after the fucking Yugakure ninjas. Not knowing who was coming, Fujin prepared the air bullet jutsu. Knowing that a sneak attack would be useless, Mitsuzuka's water clone increased his speed to attack Fujin with full power. Renjiro's shadow clone increased his speed as well. Renjiro's clones couldn't catch Mitsuzuka's clones as they moved in a random way to avoid Renjiro's clones. With Mitsuzuka's clone traveling in a straight line, Renjiro's clone was able to close the distance. As soon as he appeared in view, Fujin recognized him. Seeing that it was an enemy, Fujin attacked with the air bullet jutsu. 7 air bullets were shot at and around Mitsuzuka's water clone. Renjiro's shadow clone noticed the attack and moved out of the way. Mitsuzuka's clone also moved out of the way quickly. The jutsu barely missed him. Had it hit, the clone would have been dispelled. Mitsuzuka's clone was confused. He thought, why isn't anyone fighting with him? Did he stop chasing? However, the clone didn't think for long. He immediately made a few hand signs, water release, waterfall jutsu. A huge column of water crashed down towards Fujin. Fujin was annoyed. I can understand if his main body tried attacking me head-on. But a mere clone wants to take on me in ninjutsu? A huge amount of chakra gathered on Fujin. Renjiro's clone smirked on noticing it. He made a few hand signs. Mitsuzuka's clone's eyes widened on sensing Fujin's huge chakra. Fujin supercharged his jutsu and launched it without making any hand signs. Wind release, great breakthrough jutsu. Fujin's supercharged great breakthrough jutsu hit Mitsuzuka's waterfall jutsu. Though the waterfall jutsu was 2 ranks higher, the amount of chakra the water clone had was very limited. After all, Mitsuzuka made it to sneak attack and not to attack head-on. The great breakthrough jutsu tore into the waterfall jutsu and dispersed the water. The water clone immediately used another jutsu. Water release, water prison jutsu. The great breakthrough jutsu hit the water prison. It was sent flying, but it held firm. Even so, the water clone had a grim expression. His chakra was almost over. While the great breakthrough jutsu was dying down, an earth spear appeared under the water prison. It pierced through it. The water clone saw the earth spear. Unfortunately, he didn't have the chakra to do anything about it. He avoided it, but the water prison jutsu was dispelled. He looked at the winds of the great breakthrough jutsu and shouted, "Fucking hell!" The great breakthrough jutsu hit and dispelled him. Chapter 133, Hoka finally gets to use taijutsu. A few kilometers away from the shores, Mitsuzuka looked behind. Renjiro was still hot on his tail. He thought, one of my clones was dispelled. And so soon too. Sigh, how did we attract this bastard? Fujin looked at Renjiro's clone. He was hiding inside an earth dome. The dome collapsed. Renjiro's clone flickered next to Fujin. He asked, what's the status? Fujin replied, my opponent is dead. How are things with you? Renjiro's clone answered, my opponent made a few water clones and sent them to sneak attack you 3. Fujin nodded. He had concluded along the same lines. Renjiro's clone said, my clones have gone to Hoka and Mieko as well. You go help Hoka. I'll help Mieko. Fujin nodded and flickered. He had already sensed Hoka. Fujin landed on a tree beside the beach. A frown appeared on his face. These guys are fighting on water. I won't be able to sneak attack. Fujin observed the situation properly. Renjiro's shadow clone was suppressing the water jutsus of Mitsuzuka's water clone and the other rogue ninja. Both the water clone and the rogue ninja maintained a long distance from Hoka. His gentle fist and vacuum palm were too threatening. However, Renjiro's clone and Hoka weren't able to attack effectively either. Fujin thought, I should consider getting a summon that can fight in the water. After all, my water affinity is pretty much non-existent. I'll be in danger if I get trapped underwater. After observing for a minute, Fujin sighed, there is no way to sneak attack. Maybe I should have bugged Hiruzen for a jutsu that can attack over a kilometer away with pinpoint accuracy instantly. Surely he'd have something like that. Even if he doesn't, considering the badass titles he has, he should be able to create a new jutsu like that, right? Fortunately for Hiruzen, he couldn't know Fujin's thoughts. Fujin made a few hand signs. Wind release, vacuum bullet jutsu. A vacuum bullet formed inside Fujin's mouth. Chakra gathered on his feet and Fujin flickered. The fight was happening around 250 meters from the shore. Fujin flickered thrice in quick succession. Mitsuzuka's clone felt Fujin's danger and looked at him. He shouted, another ninja is coming. Pay attention, Ryu. Ueda Ryu paid attention to the new enemy while keeping an eye on the existing ones. Fujin appeared on the battlefield in the blink of an eye. His target was the water clone. The water clone noticed that Fujin had built his chakra and was moving towards him. Immediately, a water wall appeared between them. Fujin grinned and used vacuum bullet jutsu. The water clone's sight was blocked by the water wall. However, sensing danger, he moved towards his left. While moving, he saw something piercing the water wall he erected. He increased his speed. The vacuum bullet barely missed his abdomen. However, Fujin grinned. It was enough. The protective wind around the vacuum core was removed when it hit the water wall. As the vacuum core of the vacuum bullet passed by the side of the water clone's abdomen, it created a strong suction force. This force created a cut on the clone's abdomen as it absorbed some water from the clone. This cut was enough to dispel the clone. The water clone watched with wide eyes as he was being dispelled. He would never imagine that a kid not even in his teens would dispel him. Ryu watched with wide eyes. He cursed internally, what the hell? Not only did he lead Renjiro's clone here, but he got dispelled by a kid who hasn't even grown any facial hairs yet. What did I do to that foul-mouthed bastard that he would resort to such means to kill me? Ryu's complaints were understandable. Unfortunately, that wouldn't stop the Konoha ninjas from killing him. With the water clone dispelled, Fujin, Hoka and Renjiro's clone looked at Ryu. Ryu's hair all stood up. He had seen the capabilities of the clone. He knew that he had no chance of escaping into the water. Hoka took the gentle fist stance. Fujin grabbed his swords. They would be more practical while fighting on water. Ryu quickly shouted, "Wait, I surrender. I will give you all the secret information about Kirigakure. Just don't kill me." Hoka and Fujin didn't make any move and waited for Renjiro to decide. However, both were ready to make a move at a moment's notice. Renjiro judged for a moment. On deciding, he said, "All right. Don't resist. If you do, I will kill you." Hoka, close all his chakra points. Understanding his position, Ryu didn't resist. Hoka attacked him and closed all his chakra points. Renjiro's clone flickered next to Ryu and knocked him unconscious. He put a chakra suppression seal on him. He looked at Hoka and Fujin and said, "You two go check on Mieko. I will keep an eye on him." They nodded and flickered. Renjiro's clone carried Ryu and flickered to the forest and hid among trees. Hoka and Fujin moved towards Mieko. Hoka asked, "How did you finish your battle so quickly?" Fujin shrugged and said, "I attacked that injured guy." "Why did you rush after an elite Chunin?" Hoka snorted and said, "I wanted to fight a stronger opponent." Fujin smirked and asked, "Oh, I hope you had fun." Hoka didn't reply to Fujin. However, he was complaining endlessly in his mind. "I only fought him by myself for half a minute. Then the two Jounin clones interfered and dominated the fight. I barely got to fight." On Mieko's battlefield, Motoyuki was stunned when he saw another clone of Renjiro entering the battlefield. Motoyuki swore endlessly in his mind, "I was winning the fight. I had set up the hidden misjutsu. I could have easily escaped into the seas. I would have left far away in no time, but Mitsuzuka's clone led Renjiro's clone here. With his methods, I couldn't escape. And now another one showed up here. Don't fucking help if you are going to make the matters worse." Mitsuzuka's clone's expression was also grim. It understood the significance of Renjiro's clone showing up here. It meant that one of his fellow clones was defeated. And the ninja alongside him was also killed or captured. A huge fight began. The water clone desperately tried to defend himself while trying to create an opportunity to escape for Motoyuki. Unfortunately, nothing worked. The teamwork of the two clones was flawless. And Mieko provided perfect support with her shurikens and the threat of Sharingan Genjutsu. After a bitter struggle, the water clone finally fell. Just like Ryu, Motoyuki also offered to surrender. As soon as he offered to surrender, Fujin and Hoka arrived. One of Renjiro's clones looked at Hoka. He looked at Motoyuki and said, "All right, don't resist. If you do, I will kill you." Hoka, close all his chakra points. Hoka was surprised to be asked that again. Fujin grinned and taunted, "Today is your lucky day, Hoka. You get to attack two elite Chunins with your gentle fist. I am so happy for you." Hoka's face immediately went dark. He ignored Fujin and walked ahead while thinking, "I want to fight them head-on. This is just lame." He followed the clone's command and closed his chakra points. The clone knocked him out and put a chakra suppression seal on him. Fujin said, "Sensei, even Hoka's opponent surrendered. Your other clone took him back to the shore." One of the clones nodded and said, "I will take care of him." He grabbed Motoyuki and flickered. Mieko had heard Fujin's comment. She grinned and said, "Good job, Hoka. I am glad you finally found opponents to fight with taijutsu." Both she and Fujin began laughing. Hoka's face got even darker. He looked at Mieko and said, "Why are you laughing? Even with two of Sensei's clones helping you, you were the slowest of us." That made Mieko scowl. She immediately began arguing with Hoka. Fujin silently moved away and stood next to Renjiro's clone. He was trying hard to suppress his laughter. Renjiro's clone was speechless. We are in the middle of an A-rank mission. And 2 of my students are arguing mindlessly. And the 3rd one is the one who instigated the argument and is laughing at it. Was I too lenient with them? Renjiro's clone let out a cough. That attracted the attention of Mieko and Hoka. Realizing what they have been doing, they immediately stop arguing. However, both gave Fujin a few angry stares. Fujin saw them but acted like he didn't see them. He thought, oh boy. These 2 are hilarious as always. It's so hard to suppress my laugh, ha ha ha. Seeing that his students have calmed down, the clone said, we will leave the enemy Jounins to my main body and to Kuhei. Let us move and clear out the 3 Chunins that are engaging against Yugakure. They nodded and said, alright sensei. Chapter 134 Underwater Battle. While Fujin, Mieko and Hoka were dealing with their opponents, the others had begun fighting as well. Renjiro finally managed to stop Mitsuzuka from running. Mitsuzuka looked at Renjiro and shouted, why the fuck are you here, Renjiro? I have no interest in fighting you. I'll leave that fucking country of hot springs. That should fulfill your mission parameters, right? Renjiro smirked. He wasn't unaware of how foul-mouthed Mitsuzuka was. He said, unfortunately you killed too many civilians. The daimyo was very insistent on bringing your head back. A scowl formed on Mitsuzuka's face. He shouted back, don't fucking underestimate me, Renjiro. I killed dozens of your fucking subordinates in the last war. If you want to kill me, I'll take a fucking piece of you too. Renjiro didn't reply. There was no point in engaging in more talks. He made a hand sign. Water release, water dragon jutsu. A water dragon formed behind Renjiro and moved rapidly towards Mitsuzuka. Mitsuzuka flickered while making hand signs. Water release, water shock bomb. He released a jet of water that hit the dragon on its head and exploded. Both jutsus were neutralized. Water showered in all directions. Mitsuzuka thought, too easy. There should be more. As Mitsuzuka thought, 3 water dragons appeared at the spot where the 2 jutsus had just clashed. The one in the center moved straight at Mitsuzuka. The other 2 water dragons split in opposite directions and attacked Mitsuzuka from his right and left. Mitsuzuka moved backwards while making hand signs. Suddenly, he jumped backwards. A huge head of another water dragon appeared under his feet. The dragon opened its mouth and shot a giant ball of water at Mitsuzuka. Mitsuzuka watched with a grim expression on his face. He continued making hand signs. Water release, giant mirror shield jutsu. Just when the water sphere was about to hit him, a giant mirror of water appeared in front of him. The ball of water hit the mirror and exploded. The mirror collapsed, but the impact didn't pass through it. Behind the mirror, Mitsuzuka had used water prison jutsu to protect himself. Renjiro watched from a distance. A sphere of water surrounded Mitsuzuka, who was about 15 meters in the air. 4 water dragons moved rapidly towards the sphere of water. It looked as if the 4 dragons were competing with each other for food. Mitsuzuka kept making more hand signs. Water wall jutsu for thick water walls appeared around the water prison. Each water wall blocked a water dragon. The water dragons pierced through the water walls and collided with the water prison. They exploded on contact. Mitsuzuka infused a lot of chakra into the water prison jutsu. The explosions traveled through the water prison, but Mitsuzuka wasn't hurt. However, the water prison crumbled. Mitsuzuka and water slowly fell down on the surface of the sea. As he was falling down, his eyes were glued on Renjiro, who was standing steadily. He saw that Renjiro wasn't making any move. However, he felt a strong sense of danger. As soon as he landed on the surface of the sea, a giant claw attacked him. Mitsuzuka immediately flickered out of the way. The giant claw slashed his afterimage into 2. However, Mitsuzuka wasn't unhurt. Though he moved quickly, the claw still left 3 long cuts on his back. Mitsuzuka watched what had attacked him. His eyes widened. It was a gigantic 25 feet tall sloth. He muttered in annoyance, "This fucking beast. I still recall reading reports in the Third War of a giant sloth killing and eating my subordinates." Renjiro smirked on seeing Mitsuzuka get injured. He had summoned the sloth under the cover of their first clash. He grabbed a sword and flickered towards Mitsuzuka. Mitsuzuka noticed Renjiro's movement. The giant sloth also began swimming towards him. Understanding his disadvantageous position, Mitsuzuka dived underwater. Both Renjiro and the sloth followed him. Mitsuzuka dived to a depth of 100 meters. He created 4 water clones. Renjiro saw them and created 4 water clones as well. In an instant, all 8 water clones disappeared. The water clones moved at a very fast speed underwater. One of Mitsuzuka's water clones attacked the sloth. The sloth, though strong and able to hold its breath underwater, was severely restricted by the water. One of Renjiro's water clones went to help him. The other 3 water clones flickered around at great speeds and tried to sneak attack Renjiro. Renjiro's clones stopped their sneak attacks and sneak attacked Mitsuzuka as well. 2 men and 6 clones engaged in a high-paced melee underwater. They used numerous water-release jutsus. While underwater, the power of water jutsus was amplified by a huge degree. The surface of the sea above them became very chaotic due to the impacts happening under it. Mitsuzuka was very well versed in underwater battles. He attacked Renjiro from innovative and unimaginable angles. However, Renjiro was no slouch. He blocked all his attacks. The battle between the remaining 2 clones and the sloth also continued. Renjiro's clone and the sloth kept attacking as well, but Mitsuzuka's clone countered properly and prevented the sloth from interfering in the battle. The 2 remained in a deadlock for a few minutes. To increase the pressure on Renjiro, Mitsuzuka created 3 more clones. Renjiro smirked and created 6 water clones in response. 3 of them went ahead to intercept the 3 new clones of Mitsuzuka. The remaining 3 moved together in a group. Renjiro thought, let's see how you counter this. The group of the 3 water clones attacked a clone of Mitsuzuka who was engaged in combat. It was caught off guard due to being suddenly attacked by 3 more clones. One of Renjiro's water clones sent a flying slash at him and dispelled him. Mitsuzuka's face became grim. He realized the danger that the group of 3 clones posed. He immediately recalled his clones. They stopped fighting and retreated next to him. Renjiro and his clones tried attacking and dispelling them, but they were able to dodge everything and go back safely. Mitsuzuka and his 6 water clones looked at Renjiro and his 10 water clones and his sloth summon. Renjiro immediately pressed on the attack. His 10 water clones dispersed in different directions and assaulted Mitsuzuka from all sides. Mitsuzuka's clones entered into a defensive formation. They desperately defended Renjiro's assault. Mitsuzuka cursed in his mind, these fucking senju and their fucking huge reserves. If I keep fighting, my chakra reserves will dry up. I wanted to take advantage of him chasing me and land a killing blow, but he has been so fucking careful. I need to escape. Or I'll be dead. Worse, I'd be eaten by the fucking beast. Renjiro's clones kept up the assault. Renjiro floated next to his summon and observed, he is in a crunch. If he just makes one misstep, I'll kill him. Either he will need to create more clones or he will need to find a way to escape. After desperately defending for a couple of minutes, Mitsuzuka made his decision. He made a hand sign. 5 more water clones appeared around him. All his water clones immediately moved to attack Renjiro's clones. The last one attacked Renjiro and his summon. Meanwhile, Mitsuzuka turned around and ran away. Renjiro noticed it. It was as he anticipated. He quickly made 2 water clones to intercept the incoming clone. He rode the sloth to chase after Mitsuzuka. The sloth went around the battlefield of the water clones and swam towards where Mitsuzuka had escaped. However, soon it stopped and turned around and attacked a water clone. Renjiro was surprised. He hadn't instructed the sloth to do anything like this. However, his eyes widened as he realized why the sloth had done this. The water clone had a grim face. It was actually Mitsuzuka disguised as a water clone. The one who ran away was actually a clone. Mitsuzuka wanted to lure Renjiro's main body away. Then he could create more clones to block all of Renjiro's clones and run away before Renjiro realized that he was tricked. He immediately began cursing. What the fuck? How the fuck can this beast smell underwater? He immediately fell into a difficult situation. Renjiro and his clones made a hand sign and assaulted Mitsuzuka with dozens of water bullets. Mitsuzuka barely managed to dodge and block them. However, a few cuts appeared on his body. Once the water bullet barrage was over, the sloth moved forward and swung its massive claws at Mitsuzuka. Mitsuzuka immediately moved to dodge it. Renjiro appeared in his path and attacked him with his sword. Mitsuzuka knew about Renjiro's abilities with a sword. He grabbed his kunai and channeled his chakra through it. He blocked Renjiro's sword and used the force of the sword to move away from Renjiro. However, Renjiro's clone intercepted him and attacked him with water dragon jutsu. At the same time, the sloth as well as Renjiro moved forward to attack Mitsuzuka. Mitsuzuka desperately defended himself. Chapter 135, Mission Incomplete. While Renjiro and Mitsuzuka clashed, Renjiro's clone and Takuhei also clashed with their opponent. Takuhei's opponent was Ariyoshi Jichi. They stood face to face on the sea. Jichi taunted, "Takuhei, we have heard about you. You are a strong earth release user." "But," he smirked and continued, "but we are at sea. How will you fight me here?" Takuhei wasn't affected by his opponent's attempt at disturbing him. He calmly said, "You ninjas from the Big Five villages need to stop underestimating us." He made a hand sign, "Since I dared to chase you, it means that the result of this battle will only be your death." Takuhei opened his mouth wide. He spat out rocks and mud from his mouth. Soon a small 5-meter radius island formed in the middle of the sea. Jichi was surprised at Takuhei's skill. He thought, "He is very good. No wonder Mitsuzuka asked us to not fight against him on land." Takuhei made a few more hand signs. Earth release, rock dragon jutsu. He spat out a 20-meter-long rock dragon. Jichi was surprised once again. He quickly moved backwards and made a few hand signs. Water release, water bullet jutsu. He spat a few dozen water bullets at Takuhei and the rock dragon. But the rock dragon moved and got in front of Takuhei. All the water bullets hit the rock dragon. But apart from a few scratches, no damage was done. Jichi swallowed his saliva. Such strong defense. Takuhei smirked on seeing Jichi's reaction. He controlled the rock dragon to move towards Jichi. Jichi instantly dived underwater. Takuhei jumped on his dragon and followed him. Inside the water, Takuhei again made a few hand signs. The rock dragon opened its mouth and spat multiple mud bullets at Jichi. Jichi was surprised, but he dodged them all. Jichi made a few hand signs while running. Water release, water dragon jutsu. A water dragon formed and moved towards Takuhei. The rock and water dragons clashed. The rock dragon just moved through the water dragon, completely crushing it. Jichi was dumbfounded. He screamed internally, "What the hell is this thing made of?" This matchup was very unfair for Jichi. The earth element is strong against the water element. Of course, Jichi himself isn't strong enough. Unlike Renjiro and Mitsuzuka, he couldn't make his water dragon explode on contact. So the damage output of his jutsu was quite low. Jichi was very annoyed by the battle so far. He immediately made a few hand signs. Water release, water clone jutsu. 4 water clones appeared around him. They immediately dispersed and surrounded Takuhei. Jichi made more hand signs. Water release, great current jutsu. A water current formed in front of Jichi. It engulfed Takuhei and his rock dragon. They began getting dragged backwards along the water current. Takuhei exerted more chakra on his rock dragon to get out of this current. This provided an opening for Jichi's clones. They immediately used water bullet jutsu on Takuhei. Each clone shot a dozen bullets. Despite the strong water current around Takuhei, each bullet hit its target. Takuhei saw the incoming attack and made a hand sign. Earth release, iron skin jutsu. All 48 water bullets hit him. However, he didn't suffer any damage at all. Jichi and his clones were speechless. Jichi's eyes went red in anger. He screamed in his mind, "You know what, screw you." He made eye contact with his water clones. His water clones moved and made hand signs. Water release, great current jutsu. All 4 water clones poured all their chakra into the jutsu. They created 4 more water currents. And each of these water currents joined up with the current created by Jichi. It was like tributaries joining up with the main river. As a result, the force of the water current increased exponentially. Takuhei tried his best to break out of this water current, but to no avail. Both Takuhei and his rock dragon were washed away for a couple of kilometers. Jichi watched Takuhei getting washed away. He thought, that wouldn't be enough to kill him. But screw him. I don't want to fight that turtle. He created 4 water clones. 1 clone ran towards Takuhei. 1 stayed where he was. Jichi and the remaining 2 clones ran in different directions. Takuhei was livid at getting washed away in this manner. The strong current also damaged his rock dragon to a certain extent. Its rocky scales had been crushed and there were cracks all through its body. Takuhei decided to dump it and moved forward at full speed. A few kilometers from where Takuhei and Jichi clashed, another clash took place. Renjiro's clone had caught up with Fumimaro. Renjiro had put around 25% of his chakra in this shadow-cloned, and no words were exchanged between them. They directly attacked each other. Knowing that his opponent was just a clone, Fumimaro began attacking with low-power but large-scale water jutsus. Renjiro's clone knew that defeating a Jounin with just a clone would be close to impossible. He stayed on defense. After all, he only needed to stall his opponent until his main body was done with his fight. Unfortunately for Renjiro's clone, he didn't have enough information regarding Fumimaro. While Renjiro's clone kept his distance from Fumimaro, Fumimaro too didn't try to close the distance between them and instead stayed far away. He just used a combination of water bullet, exploding water colliding wave, water dragon and water gun jutsus. Renjiro's clone managed to block everything perfectly with water wall and water prison jutsus. After fighting for 4 minutes, Fumimaro made a hand sign. Hidden mist jutsu. Renjiro's clone frowned as the mist began forming. This jutsu was very good for running away. He immediately made a few hand signs. Wind release, great breakthrough jutsu. The jutsu immediately dispersed all the mist. However, Fumimaro secretly smirked. While the winds were traveling away from Renjiro's clone due to the great breakthrough jutsu, one small wind traveled across the flow towards Renjiro's clone. Renjiro's clone felt that something was off, but he couldn't understand what. He focused chakra into his eyes. They began glowing. He was surprised. A wind clone was disguised as the wind itself and traveling towards him. Seeing that he was noticed, Fumimaro's wind clone appeared in front of him. He was only 10 meters away from Renjiro's clone. Immediately, a water wall began appearing in front of Renjiro's clone. However, it was too late. Fumimaro's wind clone exploded. The wind sent by the explosion pierced through the thin water wall. Renjiro's clone flickered, but he still got hit. A small cut appeared on his face. He looked at Fumimaro and said, "I underestimated you," and got dispelled into smoke. Fumimaro looked at the spot where Renjiro's clone was. He thought, shadow clones are known to transmit memory. If he defeats Mitsuzuka, he will come after me. He created a few water clones and they all dispersed in different directions. As he left, Fumimaro thought, it was a mistake to come here. I had advised Mitsuzuka to not create any chaos. Unfortunately, he enjoys killing and torturing just as much as swearing. Even if Mitsuzuka survives, I shouldn't go back with him. He will just attract another calamity. But where to go without him? If I stay in the vicinity of Hidden Mist, I will attract those dogs of Mizukage. I can't join the rebel faction either due to how many of them I killed. He thought for a bit. The best place to go would be to a country that doesn't border any of the big 5 countries. Unfortunately, such a country doesn't exist. I guess I will move to the distant land of snow. Perhaps there I could find clues on how to fuse my wind and water elements into the ice element. With no one pursuing him, Fumimaro quickly escaped from the battlefield. Since he ran on water, there wasn't any trail left behind. Renjiro, who was assaulting Mitsuzuka along with his summons and clones, got the memories of his defeated clone. He was surprised. I had heard about him, but there was no intel on his wind nature capabilities. He hid it deep. However, he ignored it and focused on Mitsuzuka. Both Renjiro and Mitsuzuka had returned to the surface of the sea. Mitsuzuka's state was terrible. His clones had all been defeated. There were a lot of small injuries on his body. There were 9 huge claw marks on his body. And his left arm was missing from the elbow. Knowing that his death was imminent, he shouted, "Renjiro, let me go, or I'll haunt you even after I become a fucking ghost." Renjiro was surprised by this threat. He thought, well, that's a new one. Mitsuzuka's expression was full of anger. However, he was thinking, damn it. How do I distract him for a moment to get away? Even something crazy like that doesn't make him even blink an eye. Am I going to fucking die here? Mitsuzuka was on his last legs. Renjiro's clones launched a fresh assault. Mitsuzuka dodged desperately. However, after such a long fight, he finally gave an opening to Renjiro. Renjiro immediately flickered behind him and swung his sword at his neck. Mitsuzuka noticed and ducked down as quickly as he could. The sword barely missed him and only cut his hair. Renjiro followed with a kick. Mitsuzuka noticed it as well and tried to move ahead to avoid getting hit. However, it resulted in his ass getting kicked and he was launched up into the air. Unfortunately for Mitsuzuka, Renjiro's kick was a part of the Senju Taijutsu style. His kick was infused with a lot of chakra. Mitsuzuka's entire skeleton was shaken due to that kick. Many organs began bleeding internally. His sits bones were cracked. Seeing him in the air, Renjiro's clones immediately attacked him with water bullet jutsu. Surprisingly, even in this terrible shape, Mitsuzuka made a hand sign with his remaining hand. Water walls rose around him. The water walls were too weak to block the water bullets. However, they managed to divert the direction of the water bullets slightly. Not a single water bullet hit him. Renjiro watched with praise in his eyes. He thought, this is a real jounin. Unfortunately, this is the end for him. Renjiro didn't attack anymore. Mitsuzuka started falling. He was falling straight where the sloth was. The sloth swung its huge claw down at Mitsuzuka. Mitsuzuka noticed it, but he had no way to move out of the way. He grabbed a kunai and raised it to block the beast. However, the sloth didn't even feel the kunai. Its claw hit Mitsuzuka's head and cracked it open. He became the fourth jounin from Kiri to fall to Renjiro and his students in the span of 4 days.